George in Minneapolis. George, very good evening. You're a first-time caller. What's provoked you to call in?
I'm in the United States, and I'll give you my point of view of what I think that Europe can do to counter the recent aggression by the United States administration. The U.S. is in about $35 trillion in debt, which is 130% of their GDP. And this year's budget is going to be at least $2 trillion, I believe, in debt. Now, Europe holds about $2.7 trillion in U.S. Treasury bonds, with about the UK with about $900 billion. Now, the U.S. is paying about $900 billion in net interest every year. Now, some of these bonds are going to mature in the summer and the fall, and what Europe can do is not to rebuy those bonds. If those bonds are expired, then the U.S. needs to find another investment fund.
So just explain, I'm not very good on the debt market or the bond market. Just explain what would happen if Europe decided not to basically call in the debt.
The U.S. Treasury bonds will have to go back on the market, and the U.S. will need to find another buyer. Now, another buyer could be any investment fund, whether it's Saudi Arabia or any others. But when they buy the bonds, they might have to buy it at a loss. So,
and I mean, effectively, that borrowing would have to be repaid to the various European countries and institutions that lent it in the first place, I'm presuming.
Yes, the U.S. Treasury bonds need to be, when they mature, the money has to be paid back to the country or the investment fund that owns the bonds right now. Correct.
Well, we could do with 900 billion or whatever it is at the moment, couldn't we? Is there any appetite, do you think, among Trump's opponents in America to sort of rethink America's foreign policy after Trump with regard to Europe and NATO? Because it seems to me that if he proceeds with the Greenland project, that NATO may well cease to exist. I mean, is there any school of thought in America that actually understands how NATO is so important to the United States?
No, a lot of people in the United States, they do not think that much about geopolitics. But, Trump right now, he's worried about the midterm elections, and he's trying to find out the best that he can do, either showing that he has, great strength or that he has, economic power over the rest of the world. But he is in need of more support, and he's losing that support in the United States right now.
And the fact is, if you look at the polling on Greenland, even 70% of Republicans don't support his views on that. So if he wants to gain support for the November elections, the Greenland issue is not one to concentrate on, I would have thought. George, before I let you go, obviously Minneapolis, I've been looking at all the TV pictures over the weekend. It looks like a tinderbox at the moment, as if some really bad things might happen very soon there. Just as a resident of Minneapolis, how are you finding what's going on there?
Yeah, it's a very fragile situation. A lot of people are very anxious and very afraid because the murder of Renee Good was about a mile away from where George Floyd was murdered.
Yeah,
about 6 years ago. And with the recent, and there was with the Minneapolis police, there was a very bad reaction because people were not trusting the police, and it took about 3 or 4 years with the help from the mayor and the governor and the senators to kind of that relationship. But now the threat is not coming from the local area, it's coming from the federal area.
George, thank you very much for your call. Harry in Maidstone says, as a former Trump supporter and Brexit supporter, I genuinely think that Trump has overstepped the mark. He's become dangerous, and it's pathetic that we try and stay close to him. We're acting like a pariah. Rejoined the EU and slammed tariffs on the US, waited out until the next president. Well, you can't just rejoin the EU, even if you wanted to. That process no doubt would take almost as long as it took us to come out of it in the first place. It's not quite that simple, I don't think. Gus is a first-time caller in Glasgow. Hello, Gus.
Hello, Ian. Well, if it wasn't so serious, it would be laughable. Our blundering Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, once again has managed to put the UK on the wrong side of the argument. He didn't have to do what he did in terms of signing up this petition along with the European Union. We're not part of the European Union anymore. We didn't need to do that. And as far as sending one soldier, an officer to Greenland, well, he might as well have just sent some bearskins for all the use that did. All he's done is saddle us with potential tariffs, and we didn't need to be there. He outlined the fact that it's a matter for Greenlanders' self-determination and Denmark, who can obviously negotiate the situation with the United States, and he was quite able to take a neutral position, but didn't.
I think it's quite difficult in these circumstances because Keir Starmer has come under a lot of criticism over the last year for being, I don't know, quite soft on Donald Trump. I completely understand why he's taken the stance that he has, and I think that the relationship that he built up with him, I think, did pay some dividends early on. But I'm afraid at the moment it's not doing the same thing now. And I think go on.
Donald Trump's not going to be around forever, Ian. And, you know, he's aligned himself with Germany, France. The Germans have already turned on their heels and ran away from Greenland. They arrived on Friday. By yesterday, they were boarding a plane on their own to come back home. And when the media asked the German government what that was all about, the answer was, we've seen all we need to see. Mission accomplished. We're now going home, which leaves me wondering what on earth Keir Starmer thinks he's doing. As a country, we have no interest in Greenland other than looking at it from an aeroplane heading to the United States. It's not our beer. We didn't need to get involved in the argument, and he's put us somewhere we don't need to be, I don't think, Ian.
Well, you can take that point of view, and the alternative would either have been to come out with some very trenchant words for Donald Trump. He hasn't been as trenchant as President Macron has been, but then Macron has always sort of shot his mouth off in various circumstances, and it hasn't really got him very far. So,
Ian, the thing about it is that they can shoot off their mouths as much as they like, but the Conservative government and the Labour government, and indeed the rest of the European Union, Germany in particular, have ridden on the coattails of the Americans as far as defence is concerned for decades. We've decimated our military. So you can't argue with somebody and be trenchant about anything when basically you have no cards to play.
Well,
we rely entirely on the nuclear deterrent.
I think we do have cards to play in that we have always spent 2% of our GDP, which other countries have not. And Donald Trump was right to call out other countries for not spending enough. I completely agree with that. Gus, thank you very much. Let's go to Tony, who's in Leighton. Hi, Tony.
Hi, Ian. And another interesting topic. My view on this anyway is that I think we should have... I think the writing's kind of like been on the wall for like a while, but we didn't want to see it. I'm kind of like going back through Trump's treatment of Zelensky, his treatment of the South African president. I don't know if you remember that meeting where he presented him with fake facts as to how white people were being killed in South Africa. And I think there's a whole reel of things, and we kind of like stood by and kept quiet because it hasn't directly impacted upon us. And now we're kind of like, I don't agree with your previous caller. I think we are in the firing line because besides the fact that Greenland is in Europe, the question is after that, what will he do next? I don't think Keir Starmer could have handled it any different than he has done so far because of the other factors. Like we are kind of like indebted to them. Like, you know, could we defend ourselves? But what I do think about going forward is that I don't really understand our stance with China. It's like everyone keeps on saying, oh, China bad, but we've got all of our eggs in one basket, which is the American basket. And right now, the person running the country is a madman. And I just think if we diversify ourselves, it's not saying that we have to believe everything. You know, it's like we trade with Saudi Arabia. We can trade with China.
Well, we do trade with China. It's our major trading partner.
Sorry?
It's our major trade. Apart from America, China is, I think, our biggest trading partner, certainly in terms of imports.
Yeah, but we put fair enough. But I think we do have like restrictions on them, don't we? Like I think there's always this kind of image of like I don't know, but
well, all countries have trade restrictions. I mean, in terms of tariffs, it's just that Donald Trump seems to think that all of his diplomacy can be solved around the tariff issue.
Right. Well, yeah, fair enough. But I just think I don't really know how I do think. I mean, the question I was kind of like thinking was like, if Putin really like wanted to hurt us, what would he do that Trump hasn't helped him do so far? Because Trump hasn't really. I mean, it's like we give the Ukrainians weapons to fight against Russia, and we tell them, oh, here's this, but don't shoot it too far because we don't want to upset them. So it's almost like we've put them in a position to keep on fighting but not win it. I mean, now it's like he had that meeting with Zelensky where it was meant to broker peace. Him and Zelensky were laughing like old chums somewhere near Alaska. Him and Putin, And Putin goes back to Russia. Nothing's really changed. So I don't really know what his talking has done with Putin.
OK, Tony, thank you very much indeed. Well, in a moment, we're going to step away from this subject, though we will be coming back to your calls. We're going to talk about another Tory defection with Henry Riley. It's 7:31 on LBC. Let's get the news headlines with Amelia Cox.
Donald Trump says he will 100% follow through with tariffs over his plan for Greenland, but wouldn't be drawn on possible military action. Sir Keir Starmer earlier ruled out retaliatory measures in the face of threats by the US president to those who don't back his takeover. Kemi Badenoch has told Tory MPs those who cannot unite behind the party are free to leave. In a letter seen by LBC, the Conservative leader says those who want to undermine and destroy the party will be dealt with firmly and fairly. And the retired head of Westmorland's Police has been referred to the watchdog over his decision to ban Maccabi Tel Aviv fans from a match at Aston Villa. A review found information sourced by the force to stop the Israeli club from attending was influenced by confirmation bias. LBC weather, patchy rain tonight. Later this will become confined to northern England and Scotland. Mostly dry elsewhere, a low of -1.
The new LBC app. News your way. This is LBC. Iain Dale on LBC. Text 84850.
7:34 on LBC. Back to your calls on Donald Trump in just a moment. But first, Henry Riley joins us. He's been to Romford to test out the reaction of Andrew Rossendale's constituents after he became the latest Tory MP to defect to Reform UK last night. Henry, what did you hear?
A lot of frustration, Iain. Andrew Rosendale's been a Conservative since he was 14 years old. He's now 59, so he's been sort of true blue for a huge part of his career. He's represented Romford for 25 years, and until yesterday, of course, was a shadow Foreign Affairs Minister on Kemi Badenoch's front bench. He's now the fourth Tory front bencher to join Reform UK after that high-profile defection of Robert Jenrick last week. I did also get the chance to speak with him earlier on outside Parliament. There wasn't the same funfair as there was with that Robert Jenrick press conference, but Andrew Rosendale did tell me that he wants to see his former Conservative colleagues join too.
I will say this, though. I have argued for months and months and months that we need to unite the right. We need to get rid of this Labour government, and we need to bring people of like mind together to ensure that the next election we get a right-wing government or right-of-centre government in power with Nigel as Prime Minister. And I know that my colleagues, my former Conservative Party colleagues, are welcome to support what I think is a plan to rescue the country.
Now, I did head to Romford first thing in the morning. The MP, known for his pretty strident views, he wants Romford to be independent and leave London and sort of return to Essex. He was a strident Brexiteer, and really this is a crunch time in the capital because we have local elections in Havering and across the other 31 London boroughs where Reform UK are hoping to do quite well. So I positioned myself outside Margaret Thatcher House, which is the name of his constituency office, still very much draped in flags and Conservative signs, and the voters who I spoke to were disappointed.
I can't stand him personally. I've got no allegiance to him at all. I do vote Conservative. From my own personal point of view, he's a snake.
Should he have a by-election, do you think? Because he's now defected, he's changed party.
Absolutely, should have a by-election. Absolutely.
He can do what he wants to do, but we should have an election because we voted Conservative in here, not Reform.
Do you think Reform will do well round here? Why do you think he's joined?
He's joined because he wants to keep his job. Will they do well? I don't know. They're all as bad as each other, aren't they, if we're honest?
Of course I'm sad. Absolutely disgusting.
Did you quite like him before?
Yeah. I thought he was quite, I mean, he was good as Conservative MP. I don't think he'd be good as, he won't get nothing out of reforms. Did you really do reforms today?
Yeah, he's gone. Now, Mr. Rosendale said yesterday the Tories were bound to the mistakes of previous governments, not willing to take accountability. A Conservative source said he'd been threatening defection for months and that they were welcome to him. But Nigel Farage did describe Andrew Rosendale as a great patriot and told me earlier on that he's now imposed this transfer deadline day of the local elections, the 7th of May, for possible defectors to sign up.
I don't want endless speculation about who might or might not defect to us. That, in the end, is quite exciting now, but it will become boring if it goes on for month after month. I made it absolutely clear we are not going to be Tory Party 2.0. We are not going to be a lifeboat. So I'm saying to people, come to us before the 7th of May.
And he's now Reform UK's 7th MP. He's the 26th ex-Conservative MP or minister to sign up. And now Kemi Badenoch, in this letter that we've seen at LBC addressed to her colleagues, is clearly trying to woo and sustain her parliamentary party. She's meeting the 92 group, the Common Sense group, both very much right-wing factions within the Conservative Party to try and shore up some of that backbench support.
So did you not find a single person in Romford who supported his defection?
I'll be honest, I didn't. And there were, as you know with these things, there were quite a few people who don't want to talk on camera, and they were very disappointed. And I don't know if you've seen Andrew Rosendale's constituency office, Iain, but it's quite ostentatious, Margaret Thatcher House. I mean, there's sort of, you can't move for a sign or a picture of his face. And people were sort of walking past and murmuring to themselves, or even worse, sort of telling me off mic what they wanted to say. So, of course, it's not necessarily representative, but there was quite a lot of anger, I have to be honest.
Well, imagine that, Margaret Thatcher House having to close down because presumably he's going to have to find a new office now because that building will belong to the Conservative Party. You couldn't make it up, could you?
I do think that's the next row, though, because he is very loyal to that building. I know Margaret Thatcher, I think, reopened it, Baroness Thatcher, at one point, and it's got various plaques to her. So I don't think he's going to let it go without a fight. But as you say, it seems like it is very much Conservative property.
Well, I think you'll find the local Conservative Party will have a much bigger say in that than Mr. Rossendale. But there we go. Henry, thank you very much indeed for joining us and telling us about the reaction in Romford. Let me just tell you who's on Cross Question at 8 o'clock. The Labour MP for Loughborough, Jeevan Sander, Layla Moran, Liberal Democrat MP for Oxford West and Abingdon, Emily Hertzen, Conservative commentator and social media personality, and Lord Culvier Ranger, the Conservative peer. They'll be here to answer your questions from 8. Let's go back to your calls. We're talking about what Britain's foreign policy should be towards the United States now, because there will be increasing numbers of people who think, well, this is not a special relationship. A lot of people have said it's always been a one-way special relationship, which I think is slightly unfair, but I know what they mean. Should our policy towards the United States change, both in the short term and the medium term? Chris is in Richmond. Hi, Chris.
Good evening, Ian. It's an abusive relationship, isn't it? It's controlling and coercing. If that was a family membership, you'd take the child into care, wouldn't you? It's just outrageous the way it's behaving.
Yeah, but it's the child that's doing the bullying.
Well, it is, but what about the British politicians on the right, Mrs. Truss, Mr. Farage, that have been sucking up to this guy for so long? It's just nauseating, Ian, absolutely nauseating. I really hope that the British public remember this the next time they cast their ballots in the general election, because frankly, they need to be reminded of it.
So what would you do now? I mean, if you were the Prime Minister, would you feel that now is the time to at least recalibrate that relationship? Probably not to the extent that you want to recalibrate it, but do you think something meaningful is going to happen on that score?
Well, I think it has to happen, but the problem is we can't act alone and do something different to the European Union. I mean, Tom's Warburg saying, all right, if we decide to retaliate with massive tariffs, that's going to be bad for the economy. So that's the challenge. He knows that he's got the economic, strong power to try and coerce people. But the irony is he doesn't need to actually own Greenland. He's got troops on there. There's no problem for putting more on there. No one said he can't do that. And again, it's apparently also partly about the Nobel Peace Prize not being given to him. And it's just.
Oh, but he's got it now. He's got it.
Yeah, I know. No, but where are all the Republicans in America? What about Marco Rubio and the other one is?
Well, they're fellow travellers, aren't they?
Yeah, well, they were. They hated him a few years ago. They were slagging him off, but now they're best mates.
Well, the offer of office does wonderful things to people, doesn't it? I mean, Marco Rubio, as you say, was a very big critic of his. And as soon as he was offered to be Secretary of State, he's now become one of Trump's big supporters. But I think in sort of quieter moments, Marco Rubio, I mean, he cannot possibly support what Donald Trump wants to do in Greenland. I mean, he's an intelligent guy. And I'm not saying that I know it sounds a bit patronising, but there is no way that Rubio and several others within the Trump administration really think that is the right way forward. Chris, thank you very much. Dee says, Ian, would you defect to reform? I don't know how many times I have to answer this question, but the simple answer is no, 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 as somebody once said. It will never happen. For the same reason, I would never join the Liberal Democrats, because I don't believe in their policy platform, just as I don't believe in Reform's policy platform. Too many people who have defected to Reform have said in the past, I was born a Conservative, I will die a Conservative. And yet they have gone on to leave the Conservative Party and join Reform. I could never join Reform given the language that they use on immigration issues. I believe in controlling borders, but I do not believe in demonising people who come to this country in the way that some Reform politicians, not all, do. And I'm afraid Robert Jenrick is one of them. Edgar is a first-time caller in Hounslow. Hello, Edgar.
Hi, thank you for having me on. I'd like to give you my 2 cents. I think Donald Trump is all about the money, and if you're going to go after the money, I think you should go after the money in his backyard. He claims that Latin America or South America is his hemisphere. All their currency is pegged to the dollar. You can't do a currency exchange between, say, Argentinian peso and Colombian peso because it's all pegged to the dollar. in my opinion, what I think they should do is they should open up a currency exchange like they did with some other countries. So let them trade directly into the euro instead of having to go to the dollar. Yeah, I think that would hurt them far more, and they've got this Mercosur thing that they just signed last week. So the door's already open slightly, but I think that would annoy him more than anything else.
Well, there's a lot of things that annoy Donald Trump. You don't have to try too hard to annoy him, do you? No. I don't see any point in the United Kingdom gratuitously setting out to annoy Donald Trump, which is essentially what Ed Davey has said we should do. But I understand.
Maybe you'll make a mistake, annoy him enough, and maybe he'll screw up. And his own people will get rid of him, if I can put it that way.
Well, you never know. Stranger things have happened. Edgar, thank you very much. I mean, it is going to be interesting to see what happens in the November midterm elections, because that could be transformational. Because if the Republicans lose control of particularly the House and possibly also the Senate, I mean, that really will. Well, it will enrage Donald Trump, and he'll no doubt say that all the elections were rigged if that happens. But when you look at the fact that around 80% of Americans don't support him on Greenland, 70% of Republican voters don't support him on Greenland. I mean, that is not something. I mean, let's say, for example, that he launched a military action against Greenland before November. That is not going to win him a lot of support in those November elections. So they're absolutely crucial. Hungry Wolf says, Iain, you didn't rule out joining Labour. I really can rule out joining Labour. I mean, there is, frankly, more chance of me joining Reform than Labour, but there's zero chance of either. I can reassure you of that. I'm not active in Conservative politics, but I will remain a Conservative, I imagine, until the day I die. But then other people have said that, as I said, and look what's happened to them. Right, we'll come to Dave in Liverpool in a few moments' time, but first it's 7:46.
On the latest episode of The Newsagents.
Lewis and Emily are in Minneapolis, the city where ICE raids have been going on for the past week, leaving the city a tinderbox of tension. A special report from there.
Get the latest episode of The Newsagents with Emily Maitlis, John Sopel and Lewis Goodall. Listen or watch on our free Global Player app or the new LBC app. Dale on LBC.
It is 7:49. Cross question coming up in 11 minutes' time. Chris in Buckinghamshire says, you're a football enthusiast. Do you think that if big football countries like Spain, France, Germany, Italy and England all withdrew from the World Cup, that some leverage could be achieved? Just as a point of information, Italy haven't actually qualified yet. Hopefully they won't, because if they don't, then Northern Ireland or Wales will go through. He continues, Trump strikes me as a person who detests embarrassment, and the spectre of a limp World Cup would be embarrassing, and he might retreat. I would be wholly against any boycott of the World Cup. How could you possibly justify boycotting a World Cup in America when we didn't boycott the World Cup in Russia in 2018. I mean, it is just unthinkable. It's not going to happen. I doubt whether the respective governments of any of those countries would actually have the power to make it happen. It would have to be done through their respective football associations, and that won't happen. Dave is in Liverpool. Hi, Dave.
Yeah, hi, Ian. I would like to see Keir Starmer get on the phone tomorrow to Trump and say, listen, little man, if you want our king to come and visit you to celebrate your 250th anniversary, well, you better wise up a little bit and behave yourself. Because obviously, you know, Trump's character is so childlike, that would really upset him because he's so in love with the royal family, isn't he? And he thinks they're the bee's knees. And for them to reject him would probably be one of the best things that could happen.
Well, would it, though? What would happen then? Because I think it would be very counterproductive in that he effectively would treat this country as a pariah then and treat it even worse than he's doing already.
Yeah, but people keep saying that. But for goodness sake, we've got to stand up to him. We can't keep putting up with this nonsense. You know, this fear of what will happen. Well, look what's happening. He's completely crazy. You know, the man's just lost the plot completely. And the more we keep sucking up to him, it's like a child. If you keep giving in to them, they'll just want more and more, and they'll keep getting away with it. You know, do we really want friends like that now? He's threatening to destroy our economy. He's putting us at risk from, you know, our traditional enemies. And, you know, he's even wanting to destroy, you know, the BBC, our broadcasting institution. I mean, it's completely mad. We need to stop sucking up to this man. You know, he's just completely unstable now. And I think it's time, you know, that the American public thought, God, we can't have this man representing our country. This is just terrible.
Well, Dave, I'm going to ask Chris and Corey to clip what you just said, and we're going to start our 9 o'clock hour with what you've just said and ask our audience, is Dave right?
Yeah, please do. Yeah, so I think...
That's a way of getting you keeping listening, isn't it?
Fantastic. I won't be turning off tonight.
Right.
Yeah, it's a great question. Should King Charles cancel his visit?
Well, that's not actually the question I want to ask. Now, the question I want to ask at 9 is, has Trump lost it? Because I think that there is, if you look at all the things that he's said and done over the last 5 or 6 days, I mean, it is a catalogue of chaos in a way.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look what he said about Iran. You know, and then look what happened there. Absolutely nothing. And I'm glad they didn't take any military action, because I don't think that would have been right. But he was implying to the Iranian people he was round the corner coming to rescue them.
Yeah.
I mean, how insane was that?
Well, also, I mean, to my mind, the most unbelievable thing is when he says that Putin's going to be on this so-called board of peace. And I don't know if you were listening earlier when Cole Bildt was telling us that actually this isn't just about Gaza. It's basically going to mirror the United Nations Security Council.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, that is just utterly delusional.
It's beyond belief, isn't it?
Anyway,
Absolutely.
Dave, we will hear from you again a little bit later. Thank you very much indeed. Andrew says, I was thinking, what's important to Trump? Respect, recognition, gold and golf. So, why not give him a combination of a Nobel Prize and a special, unique knighthood? Send one of the King's golden carriages as a present for the new White House ballroom. Suggest the renamed Trump Ryder Cup be staged at Mar-a-Lago. I think that package would honestly get you whatever you want from Trump. Well, many words spoken in jest, eh? Michael's in Dover. Michael, hi.
Hello. I don't agree with your last caller. I think you've got to step back a little bit and be a bit more subtle.
Like Trump.
Well, I've never voted anything other than Conservative in general elections, and I'm 68, and I don't see any reason to change. I've got no time for the Labour Party. I can't stand Keir Starmer, never have done. But I have to say, Keir Starmer, I think, struck the right note today. And I think if enough leaders around the world, not just Europe, but around the world, took a similar stance and had some soft diplomacy towards American politicians in general, I think the American politicians would do the arm twisting and the hard work, and Trump would be removed eventually because he is out of control, and you can't allow him to just trample around where and how he likes, because it's all very well people saying, oh, but Ukraine doesn't affect us in the UK, or Greenland doesn't affect us in the UK. Trump eventually would be allowed to go around the world doing what he wants, and it'll affect everyone.
That assumes that there's enough politicians on both sides of the aisle in the United States with the courage to do that. It's certainly not going to happen before the November elections, is it? It might happen after that, I suppose. Michael, thank you. Jonathan says, Iain, you say you're a Conservative supporter till you die. This isn't a game of football. Are you interested in their policies? Just nicking a team and sticking with it is silly. Well, no, I believe in Conservative principles. Simple as that. I believe in low taxes. I believe in a small state. I believe in freedom under the rule of law. I could go on, and the Conservative Party, to my mind, is the only party that offers that. I don't agree with every single Conservative policy. Of course I don't. Doubt whether Kemi Badenoch does. Margaret Thatcher certainly didn't agree with all the things that her government did. But you have to find a political party where you agree with them 70-80% of the time, and that's the one that you'll end up probably voting for. I've voted different parties in local elections in all sorts of ways. But in a national election, I will want to choose the party that reflects my basic political views. And Reform will never do that because a lot of their policies are quite left-wing in my view. Let's go to Brian, who's in Tring. Hello, Brian.
Yes. What I like to say is that it may make us feel all better, but we could do a coordinated boycott of US goods, and we could choose to have our holidays elsewhere other than in the USA.
Well, it might make us feel very self-satisfied, but those sorts of boycotts never really work, do they?
Yes, but it does generate some publicity, and it does generate a methodology which gains publicity and shows what the public feel about that dictator in the United States.
Well, he's not a dictator. He's democratically elected.
Yes, and one could argue that he shouldn't have been democratically elected because...
OK, you can argue that, but that doesn't make him a dictator, does it?
Well, he's acting like a dictator.
He still has to conform with the US Constitution, though. And that's a pretty strong document. Yes, one could argue that he isn't complying with the US Constitution. Well, if he wasn't, he'd be up in the courts, wouldn't he?
Well, he is going to be up in the courts because at the moment he's got a court case that's saying that his tariffs are illegal.
Well, and actually we're going to get the result of that tomorrow, I think.
Exactly. And that is going to cause a major crisis in the USA.
Well, it is if they find against him, but who knows? Brian, thank you very much indeed for that. Right, coming up in the next hour, it's Monday's Cross Question. Remember, Cross Question is now 4 days a week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Joining me on the panel, Jeevan Sander, Labour MP for Loughborough, Layla Moran, Liberal Democrat MP for Oxford West and Abingdon. She chairs the Commons Health and Social Care Committee. Emily Hewitson is a Conservative commentator and social media personality. She was a housemate in last year's series of Big Brother. And Lord Colville Ranger joins us, a Conservative member of the House of Lords. So they're here to answer your questions. Lines are open, 0345 6060 973. That's the number to call here on LBC.
On your radio, on the LBC app, and
Play LBC.
Leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC.
From Global's newsroom at 8 o'clock, Donald Trump's again refused to rule out taking Greenland by force. The US president's pledging to 100% impose tariffs on European countries if they don't drop opposition to his takeover plans. Sir Keir Starmer's called his approach totally wrong and says a trade war's in no one's interests. Carl Bildt, the former Prime Minister of Sweden, told Iain Dale it looks like nothing will change Mr Trump's mind.
Whether there anyone in his vicinity who are saying, stop, this is insane, I don't know if those people are around in the White House any longer. And even if they're around, I think there are serious doubts whether he listens to people. He is somewhat intoxicated with his own powers at the moment.
The former Conservative Chancellor George Osborne says he has some sympathy for Sir Keir Starmer's situation.
It's obviously a really difficult situation for any of America's allies. So what you have to do is try and put the pieces back together again, work with the Trump administration to try and find a solution.
Kemi Badenoch has told Tory MPs those who cannot unite behind the party are free to leave. In a letter seen by LBC, the Conservative leader says those who want to undermine and destroy the party will be dealt with firmly and fairly. Defector Robert Jenrick has been heckled at a Reform UK event in Newark. He's represented the constituency since 2014.
David Davis supports Lucy Langley. Good to see you, sir. Good to see you. Thank you for coming. Thank you.
He's told LBC he won't trigger a by-election now he's switched party.
In our system, you're elected as an individual. I appreciate that many people vote on party lines, but the last general election I was the only MP in the whole of Nottinghamshire and Derbyshire to win my seat as a Conservative. And I think part of the reason why I bucked the trend was because I'd always been independent-minded.
The retired head of West Midlands Police has been referred to the watchdog over his decision to ban Maccabi Tel Aviv fans from a match at Aston Villa. A review found information sourced by the force to stop the Israeli club from attending was influenced by confirmation bias. And more than 60 MPs have written to Sir Keir Starmer urging him to bring in a social media ban for under-16s. They claim successive governments have done too little to protect young people from unregulated platforms. In the city, the FTSE 100 closed down 39 points at 10,195. The pound buys $1.34 and €1.15. LBC weather, patchy rain tonight, later becoming confined to northern England and Scotland, a low of -1. Lingering rain in the far north and east tomorrow will clear, highs of 11 degrees. From Global's newsroom for LBC, I'm Matt Hewitt.
This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation. Cross Question with Iain Dale.
Hello and welcome to Monday's Cross Question, which you can watch live on Global Player, the LBC app and the LBC YouTube channel. Joining me on the panel tonight, to my left, Emily Hewitson, Conservative activist and commentator and social media personality. Next to her, Lord Colville Ranger, Conservative peer. To my right, Layla Moran, Liberal Democrat MP for Oxford West and Abingdon. She chairs the House of Commons Select Committee on Health and Social Care. And next to her is Jeevan Sander, Labour MP for Loughborough. They are here to answer your questions on 0345 6060 973. You can WhatsApp that number and you can, of course, text 84850.
Call 0345 6060 973. Text 84850. Cross Question. Watch live on both Global Player and the new LBC app. This is LBC.
Right, let's start off with Anthony in Belfast. Anthony, what would you like to ask?
I'd like to ask the panel, it's easy to be able to dismiss Donald Trump because of his personality and his behaviours, which seem both erratic and a little bit gregarious. But do they not see the potential method in his madness in every aspect that he's been going about, be it Greenland, be it Putin's involvement, or even the bullying of European allies to be able to increase their spending on NATO per GDP?
Method in his madness, Layla Moran.
Definitely madness. Today's been bewildering. It's utterly deranged almost, because sometimes I understand, and I remember, I think I was on this programme where I said, when it came to the 20-step plan for Gaza, and actually he'd pulled people round an idea when there was a lot of prevarication before, and as you know, Ian, I've never been any kind of a fan, but on that I could see some kind of end that he was aiming for. The thing about the Greenland thing and the tariffs thing, he doesn't need to do this. I mean, this is the bit. Honestly, if someone could please explain it to me, just what is he not getting? Unless you think that actually what he wants out of this is some kind of literal territorial gain for the United States, that he's so annoyed by the fact he didn't get the Nobel Peace Prize, which he now blames the Norwegian government for, even though they aren't the ones to dish it out. That he has.
But they are, Layla.
Oh, apparently so. Yes. Well, I believe that he believes that.
And just on this border peace, it's worse than you're saying, because I was lectured on this earlier by Carl Bildt, the former Prime Minister of Sweden. He said, "Ian, it's not about Gaza. If you actually read the document that he's published, this border peace is meant to be a new UN Security Council, and that's why he's invited Putin on it." I mean, it's beggars belief, doesn't it?
It does. But I mean, the way he's going about this we almost need to all understand we are working under different rules now. Gone is, or at least going, is the international rules-based order, replaced by a deals-based order. When I try and get into the brain of Donald Trump, and it's a scary place, but imagine he's trying to run a business or something, and that's what I'm trying to get some kind of sense out of this. What I do know, though, and I genuinely hope that Keir Starmer reflects on this. The Liberal Democrats have been saying this for some time. If he's going to act as the world's bully, and he already took your lunch money once and you caved, are you really that surprised when he does it again? We have to change tack now. And there is only really one way to do this, and that is to act in absolute concert, not just in this country. And it's been remarkable, don't you think, that he has managed to do something almost impossible. All parties from all the political spectrum have said the same thing, not just in this country, but across the whole of Europe.
Nigel Farage has been quite outspoken
That's
today.
That's what I mean. I mean, we are all speaking with one voice. He has done something remarkable in that sense, but it doesn't speak well of where he's going to.
If we're to follow your party leader, Ed Davey, and say, yes, we should cancel the state visit from the King in whenever it's going to be, was it April or May? I mean, that would just be gratuitous, wouldn't it? It would just sort of poke the bear.
There comes a point, where actually, just for your own pride, just because you say enough is enough, that you've got to actually do something. And we've tried sucking up to this guy, and it doesn't work. So we need to now actually put some threats on the table. We know how much he adores the royal family, even more than potential tariffs. I genuinely think this is leverage we've got and no one else has.
Colville Ranger.
Well, I don't dismiss Donald Trump. I think your caller was saying, do we dismiss him and is this method is madness? We have to look at where the world is right now. And I think it's not like I'm fully supportive of his means, but he's consistent. His approach is, this is my mountain, that's what I want. And if we go back to the book he did or didn't write, The Art of the Deal, this is him negotiating. He puts a position out there, an extreme position, and lets everyone sort of work out their position around it. He's leading the story, he's setting the agenda, and he's deciding what he wants and then sees what he gets at the end. And I think that's been a consistent approach from him all the way through. I think what we need to understand is actually that this has become an era of nationalistic politics. We have moved. We've had a 30-year period.
Well, we haven't, have we?
Well, we have, because, look, and Layla, I appreciate your views on what we want to do with the US and Donald Trump, but Did it help with Russia? Did letting Crimea get annexed? Did Novichok poisonings? Did Georgia being bombed? All these things that were happening from that side. Did we do anything? Did the West stand up to the bullying, to the tactics of? And I think and then that's led to where we are in Ukraine.
But Labour is effectively advocating a nationalist policy, isn't she?
Yes, and I think yes, I think we do have to look at the world through a nationalistic perspective. And I do think this actually relates a bit back to what happened during COVID. And what I mean there is we saw a breakdown of grouping structures into what is it that my country needed? Where were those supply chains? Where was the vaccine? Where was the PPE? We saw it happening before our eyes, and we all scrabbled around to support our people. And, Trump has risen from that, put an America First agenda there, and this is the consequence. And we're going to see this consequence play through for the next decade or so and beyond this presidency, and how we work that out. And what we need to decide in the UK is what is our nationalistic position? Where do we want to be in this conversation? That's what our political leaders need to decide. And I think that's why I do think
have they computed that, do you think?
Sorry,
have they computed that across the political spectrum?
I think people are, at the moment, we're dancing to a tune that has been played to us by an American president. I think we have to sit back and work out what is going on, what is our long-term position here. This is not entirely about Donald Trump. Donald Trump will go as president eventually, but he is setting a tone.
Or will he?
yes, quite. But I think he is setting a tone. And I think what we really need to sort of work out is what is going to be the United Kingdom's role in a new world order of nationalistic politics.
Jeevan Sandhu.
Well, I can't speak to the method. You can see the method, but the end is one that will make us less safe, and most importantly, America less safe as well. To be clear, it's wrong for the United States to demand control over Greenland. It's wrong to threaten military action, and it's wrong to threaten tariffs. Now, first of all, the tariffs, of course, will make both us and the American people poorer, who'll have to pay higher prices. But more importantly than that, the thing that kept us safe since the Second World War, the longest period of peace in at least 2,000 years with no great power war, was both membership of the most powerful military alliance in the history of humankind in NATO, as well as borders that could not be redrawn by force. We don't know what wars look like. We don't know what wars on that scale look like. We can't imagine the horror. We think about Gaza, the horror that is 40,000 people dead. Then you think about the Second World War, 70 million dead. It's an oceans of blood that we cannot comprehend. It's so important for us to recognize and understand what has kept us safe. Now, clearly the world is changing, and it's changing for us in Europe and as a country. Europe must now stand up and defend itself. That's very, very clear. Take responsibility for that. From our side, that does mean increasing defence spending. It does mean implementing the SDR in full. It does mean working with our European allies. It does mean protecting Eastern Europe, because we learned a century ago what happens when you don't do that. And we should learn those lessons. A century ago, politicians sat in my chair and made the mistake of not preparing for war. And by doing so, they did not prevent one. And by doing so, millions died.
Completely agree with you. However, do you think there is a recognition within the government that this can't happen next year? It's got to start happening now, because we know what's going to be spent on the welfare budget up to 2031. We don't know what's going to be spent on the defence budget. They say, well, there's an ambition to increase defence spending to 3% or 3.5 by 2034 or something, but there's no actual plan to do it. Are you confident the government has that plan?
I'm confident the government has the plan. I'm confident the government has the will. I'm confident Keir Starmer stood there in March in the House of Commons and made it clear to the British people, we must prepare for war. He said the same thing in July. It is the mission of both myself and all my colleagues, indeed this government, to do so. We are in once-in-a-century times. We face great existential crises. There is a military crisis in Europe. We do have to increase spending. Yes, we do have to prepare to defend ourselves. We are confronted with a burning planet and an affordability crisis leading to the rise of the far right on our streets. Our nation is deeply divided. So we have a policy challenge, defend this nation, make life affordable, stop the planet from burning, and a political challenge to unite this nation at a time of deep, deep division. This government understands that. I understand that.
But these are not Trump's issues. These are not caused by Donald Trump. And you say, Jimmy, with all due respect, a time of peace that we've had, Gulf War, Iraq War, Afghanistan, Syria, there have been proxy conflicts happening throughout that so-called period of peace that we've kind of insulated ourselves from and ignored to a certain degree. That's on us. So I think we've let America lead us and help the West to protect itself from what was happening in those areas.
Well, those wars were horrific, right? And also, look, I was quite young at the time, but of course I opposed the Iraq War. But on the other side of it, what we haven't seen is a great power war, which is two superpowers clashing together. It's not just the Second World War, it's the First World War, it's the Napoleonic Wars. It's looking back in history time and time again, watching entire nations, continents being consumed by it. So yeah, you're right, there has been conflict. I wish there was world peace. We got quite close in 2010, the lowest year for conflict deaths. Clearly, we're very far away from that now, and unfortunately getting much further away. If we want to keep ourselves safe, we do have to prepare.
Emily.
So I would say that obviously I'm a big supporter of the special relationship. I see the benefits there. However, there does have to be a red line. I do see method in terms of how Trump does apply pressure, and we have seen him get a lot of results from that. He does get people around the table, and he has, for example, with the Iranian regime, put a lot of pressure there, and that's as a result meant executions haven't. Well, executions he did.
He told us last week all the killings had stopped, and not a lie.
No, that is true, but the public executions that were planned have stopped, and he does put pressure and he does get people around the table. However, I think in order to be taken seriously as a nation, we do need to have a red line, and I think this does need to be it, because obviously I don't think Trump will actually enact on this threat. I might eat my words on that.
Which
because,
threat? Terrorism?
In terms of to actually invade, military invasion, against Greenland. I don't think he will actually follow through on that. I think he'd be really stupid to. But I do think that kind of has to be a red line for the United Kingdom. We can't turn our back on our NATO allies just in defence of the special relationship.
If he did invade Greenland, though, I mean that is the end of NATO, isn't it?
Absolutely, and I think that has to be a red line.
Well, it's the end of America in NATO, for sure. I mean, I think one of the things that I would advocate for still, however, is working with others. And it's never been more important to be working with those whose values we do share, who we do have historic relationships with. And those are everyone else in NATO. I mean, literally everyone else in NATO except America. We just have to accept that America right now under this president, and arguably moving forward, Trumpism as an ism is real. It's very much taken over the right of American politics.
Well, and it also could carry on beyond Donald Trump.
That's my point. That's exactly my point. Is that I don't think it ends. You know, we don't just have to ride it out for 4 years and hope it comes good when a Democrat government comes back. No.
Quick answer from all of you. Does all this mean that Britain should recalibrate its relationship with America, sort of accept that the special relationship is effectively at an end, and we need to construct a new foreign policy towards America? I mean, is that where we're heading, Jeevan?
We would like the special relationship to endure, not least to which our own safety and security, but also that in Ukraine. All the things it has produced in the past, we would absolutely plan to help ensure it endures. But irrespective of the Trump presidency, Britain and European NATO would have to stump up more to defend ourselves. Clearly, the Americans are in a different position, not only here, but also because their own interests, for example, around Southeast Asia, around protecting Taiwan. So for us as Europeans, we do have to step up and protect our own nation. That was true under Trump.
As I say,
and indeed, the same happened under Obama as well.
Quick answers on this, please.
I think the special relationship will endure. It's something that was coined by, I think, Churchill in 41. It's something that has to evolve in the context of the time that we're living in. And as I say, for the reasons I mentioned before, things have changed. Nationalistic sovereignty has come to the fore. We have to be careful about how we embrace that in the UK. We've seen the local politics emerging around it. On a national stage, we have to understand how our relationship will evolve within America. That will be in a post-Trump era as well. I do think, after Trump goes as president, there will be a post-Trump America. It will be different, but that special relationship will endure between the UK and the US.
Emily?
I agree. I think the special relationship will maintain. However, I do think this opens up a wider conversation about investing more in UK defence.
Layla?
I think elements of that special relationship will endure, particularly on security services and stuff that we just don't see. But in terms of we are the America's best buddy, and where you go, I go, is just not the case anymore, is it?
Never do an American accent. Never.
I used to have one.
Did you?
At school. Yeah, I went to an American school as a teenager. I had one. Yeah, it's not made up.
Did you consciously get rid of it?
Yeah. I got bullied like hell when I came to the UK, absolutely.
I'm sorry, pal.
That's okay. It's time to overshare. That's the American in me.
Right, more of your calls to come, 0345 6060 973. It's 18 minutes past 8.
This is LBC.
During
Question with Iain Dale on LBC. Text 84850.
19 minutes past 8 on LBC. My panel were having a spirited discussion over plans for the next hour. Jeevan Sandhu is here, Labour MP for Loughborough. Layla Moran, Liberal Democrat MP for Oxford West and Abingdon. It's the town centre, city centre in your constituency.
Yes, boundary changes gave me that.
I got a ticket for going through a bus lane which wasn't posted properly.
I can help
anyway,
you with that, Ian.
It's too late, I've paid it. Emily Hirritson is a Conservative activist and commentator, and Culvia Ranger is a Conservative peer. Right, let's go to a text question from Carly in Hove. After Ian just dismissed the idea, would you support the England and Scotland teams boycotting this summer's World Cup? Well, we had a comment from a listener in the last hour saying that if France, Spain, Italy, Germany and us all boycotted the World Cup, wouldn't that send a message to Donald Trump? I did point out that Italy hadn't qualified yet. But, I mean, should England and Scotland do that? That's the question from Carly. Emily.
Well, as a huge football fan, I really hope this doesn't happen. I've been counting down the months to the World Cup. I support Aston Villa, so it's a bit sore because Man City and Arsenal, who are above us in the league, did both drop points, and then all we had to do was get a result against Everton, and we failed. But I'm hoping for England to actually win this year. I have high hopes, ever the optimist. So I'm really hoping we don't boycott. But in a more serious note, I think if we were to start boycotting things, surely there's many other nations you can make a moral argument against boycotting. For example, Qatar World Cup.
Or the Russia World Cup in 2018. I mean, it's a bit difficult to argue. Well, anyway, Tottenham Hotspur supporting Culvia Ranger.
I knew you were going to bring this up in West Ham supporting Iain Dale. Football is a very serious thing for a lot of us. Indeed. It brings us a lot of joy and pain, as do World Cups. But I think we'll have to see where we get to in this conversation about Greenland. I think, it's going to be, it's not something we can decide now. On the flip side, if all those European superpowers step out, it may give us an additional chance to win it. And I'd really like to see a World Cup win for England, really, really late in my life. But in seriousness, I think we have to see how this plays out. Look, if we know anything about a Donald Trump playbook, he says something, the world reacts. We then flow out into some other kind of negotiation, and then he gets what he was actually looking for, and everyone sort of calms down. Now, I'm not saying this is exactly what's happening with Greenland, but I sense it's going to get to that point. There's been a long play on the Greenland conversation. It's been put up, it was sowed the seeds months and months back, and it's been sort of bubbling up through his administration. I also know, having been in Washington several times last year, that the administration is fully focused on what they can get done before the midterms. Because as soon as those midterms and the run-up to the midterms in November, all eyes will become on that next election and what's going to happen. And I know a lot of people working in the policy areas in the US have been firmly focused on getting as much as they can out there. So it's a bit of a policy grab, international order shake-up, Trump doing what he wants to do, throwing out different ideas, seeing where they land, seeing where he gets to, and then it'll all be about the US election for the next 2 years.
Vasilios says, Ian, what about England winning the World Cup and then as a good gesture presenting it to Donald Trump? Yeah. Jeevan.
Well, we're way off that point, but it's also a really important national moment. Like English football teams, English football tournaments, Scotland, I hope every single nation in the UK gets to enjoy that. It's a time when we come together. We all get to enjoy our flag, like at that moment. We get to go to the pub together, share the conversation together. It's a really important moment for us. So I don't think we're at the point of boycotts, but I also think the World Cup, the Euros are a really special moment, as well as the commiserations that tend to happen.
Well, indeed. 70 years of hurt now? I don't know. So you wouldn't be in favour of any kind of boycott?
I don't think so, no.
Layla?
Yeah, I'm not there yet.
Yet?
Well, I mean, the context of the question was like, if everyone else... no. I live with it.
Well, you're one of these women that watch the World Cup and that's it.
I do enjoy it. I do enjoy watching the football. I watch a lot of football. My other half is an avid Chelsea fan. My dad's a Man U supporter. It's on all the time in my house. I know way more than I ever thought I would. And I like going to games, so don't get me wrong. But it is not... Tennis is my sport of choice. I don't think Donald Trump would particularly care if one or other country went. If the best countries in the world all en masse decided they didn't want to go. But I'm coming with Emily on this. Like, if we are going to do this with this, why didn't we do that with Qatar? I mean, I think that's the perfect example. I also think the English football team and our teams, when they go out, they show the very best of our country. And I think America needs a bit of that right now.
Also, can I just say it's actually very refreshing to hear a politician admit that they're not a big football fan, because I think we see a lot of pseudo football fans amongst the political class
do
these
the banter,
days.
But yeah, honestly, I'm not about to lie about it, no.
I like that.
I'm tempted to ask what football banter you know, but I think I'll better not. Particularly as your partner's a Chelsea fan.
I know them all.
Right,
sorry.
Neil is in Glasgow. He says, should we allow the Chinese mega embassy to be built, even though Hong Kong dissidents who are living in this country are in fear of it, while China supports and funds the Russian invasion of the Ukraine? Now, a bit of background to this. The government's self-imposed deadline to decide on whether to approve planning permission for the new Chinese embassy in the City of London is tomorrow. So it's going to be a big day tomorrow. So we could have that decision, and we'll have the Supreme Court decision in Washington on the legality of Donald Trump's tariffs. Colville.
Not to name drop, but I've just come from a lecture by the head of MI5, and this topic did come up. And it was a private lecture, so I won't go into the details of what was discussed. It was for peers. But my view is that, and actually this was sort of shared, and I think he has shared this view publicly about where we are with China. We do have to have an ongoing relationship with China. We do have to have some kind of way of working with them, that we can't just cut China off. It's too big, it's too important. There's going to be a relationship there. I think from a Chinese embassy perspective, there's lots of sort of spurious arguments about it's too close to some specific cables. There are arguments about, actually, if we put them all in one place, because they're currently dotted around in different locations, it might be easier for surveillance techniques and all this kind of stuff. Well, I think they do need a site. I think we have looked at this site for a long period of time. What the decision is, if there is some actual hard evidence that the site is not appropriate, then fair enough. But I don't think we can just say, because it's China, we don't want to give them the site.
Even though, excuse me, that in the plans, there is one wall that they want to knock down. And it just so, I mean, this is obviously purely coincidental. It just so happens to be right by where all the fibre optic cables go from the City of London to Canary Wharf. I mean, that's obviously a coincidence.
And I think that's where we do
Why would we be stupid enough to do it?
And that, for that reason, if there's a national security risk, that's what needs to be understood through a planning application, and then we make a sensible decision. But I think there's this overarching narrative about, well, we have to be fearful of where Chinese embassy is for all kinds of reasons. We have to be careful about every embassy. We are being surveillanced up to the hilt by literally all those other nations that we know out there that are acting not in our best interests. And so we are conscious of that. But yes, in this case, if there is a national security issue around the planning and the wall and etc., then let's be clear about it.
I've got the perfect solution.
Go on, put them in the Olympic Stadium.
Exactly.
It's like
knock down the London Stadium and give them that.
Yes.
And
then you can stop playing football there.
we can build a ground even better than yours, Jeevan.
So the decision itself is a quasi-judicial decision, so I can't comment on the specific decision. It will come out.
Well, you can, because you're not part of the decision.
I can't comment on the decision.
Yes, you can.
I can't. I can guarantee now there's a whip listening saying, Jeevan, for the love of God.
You're not a member of the government, so you can comment on anything you like.
I'm a PPS now, so I can't. So I can't comment. I'm half a front bencher either.
I'll give you that. That wasn't on my brief.
Times they've been a change.
So are you PPS too?
Peter Kyle.
Oh, very good.
Peter's very good and very, very nice. It's great. But away from that, the Chinese is a quasi-judicial decision. I can't comment upon it. More broadly, our relationship with China is one of competition, but also cooperation. Like, we accept the challenges that come with that relationship. It's also the world's second largest economy and a trading partner as well. It's a realistic relationship. So that is the frame within which we go into it. We do go into this stuff with open eyes, and the decision around the embassy will come, as you're saying, tomorrow.
Okay, Layla?
I have strong reservations about this site for all sorts of reasons. And it was interesting about transparency, right? We only found out about the secret rooms because there was a leaked plan that got into the Telegraph. And it was only then that we were able to ask for an urgent question to get the minister up to talk about it. And it was the wrong minister that came at first, because it was the housing minister, when actually what we needed was the security minister. And I think what we've got here is where you've got these big geopolitical considerations that happen between countries. Now, I absolutely agree. They need an embassy somewhere. Okay, so let's start from there. But actually, the way that China has been behaving on the world stage, particularly over the last 10 years, it's very different to the 10 years prior. We should be ever more skeptical about it. The question quite rightly points out that there are people in this country who fled Hong Kong for fear of their lives because of either imprisonment or threat, and they are the ones who are raising the alarm. We absolutely should stand by them because we were joint signatories to that agreement, and it has been flagrantly tossed aside by China for far too long. So we absolutely need to be mindful about what they're doing. And yet Parliament has not been able to get the answers that we needed about what is going on in that building. Why is it there, as you point out, very close to the cables? Ooh, interesting that. We have strong reservations. Okay. So I hope tomorrow the government is either fully transparent about why it should go ahead or listens to us and our concerns and decides that this is not the place for it and find a new venue.
Emily.
I'm suspicious of China, and obviously I'm very aware that China is not our friend. I also have a lot of concerns that I share with Layla about the transparency of government, and I think a lot of that, for me, stems from how the government dealt with the China spy case in Parliament, and that's raised a lot of concerns. I don't think we're been given the full truth, and I have a lot of concerns about the site in which they want to use, but I think whatever decision that we get tomorrow, we do need to demand transparency and see how that decision has been made. So that's something that I think we all really need to push for.
Well, it's taken long enough, hasn't it? And pure coincidence that Keir Starmer is about to go to China very soon, I think.
Exciting times. I hope he has fun.
That's a future career for you in diplomacy, isn't it? It's 8:31 on LBC. Let's get the latest news headlines with Matt Hewitt.
Donald Trump says he will 100% follow through with tariffs over his plans for Greenland, but wouldn't be drawn on possible military action. Sir Keir Starmer earlier ruled out retaliatory tariffs. Lib Dem leader Sir Ed Davey says the government should stand up to a bully and a gangster. Kemi Badenoch has told Tory MPs those who cannot unite behind the party are free to leave. In a letter seen by LBC, the Conservative leader says those who want to undermine and destroy the party will be dealt with firmly and fairly. And the newly retired head of West Midlands Police has been referred to the watchdog. It's over errors which led Craig Guildford to ban Maccabi Tel Aviv football fans from a match at Aston Villa in November. LBC weather. Patchy rain tonight. Later, this will become confined to northern England and Scotland. Mostly dry elsewhere, a low of -1.
LBC. Leading Britain's conversation. Cross Question with Iain Dale. Alexa, send a comment to LBC.
8:34, if you just tuned in, let me reintroduce our panel to you on Cross Question. We have Jeevan Sander, Labour MP for Loughborough, Leyla Moran, Liberal Democrat MP for Oxford West and Abingdon, Emily Hurtson, Conservative activist and commentator and social media personality, and Lord Culvier Ranger, Conservative peer. Right, Carl is in Camden. Carl, what would you like to ask? Hi.
Hello, good evening there, and hello to everyone at the panel. I had a particular question, more to do with, I believe that Labour MP had emphasised on the UK's determination, or Keir Starmer's determination against terrorism and defence overall. I wanted to know what would the UK sort of response or action would be to the ISIS terrorists being released by the Syrian army backed by Turkey today, especially with the UK-born ISIS detainees. Is the UK still an effective part of the coalition supporting the SDF, the Kurds, against ISIS?
Right, a bit of background to this. The Kurdish-led Syrian Democratic Forces currently controls a camp which Shamima Begum and other ISIS fighters are being held in, but are losing territory to Syrian government forces. If there is a breakdown in order in the area around the camp, this could lead to some of the fighters being released. Layla, let's start with you on this one.
I don't know enough about the individuals. Are we suggesting here that this is another repatriation, Shamima Begum losing citizenship situation? Because,
yeah, I think there are other British passport holders in a similar situation, but she's the one that obviously everybody talks about.
She's the sort of flag bearer for it. I mean, these cases are complex, and it depends on the individuals. You can't leave someone stateless is the main international law that we need to follow. So if they are British and only British, you can't then remove their nationality.
But our government did make her stateless.
Well, and that's going through more court cases, is my understanding.
I think it's actually finished, hasn't it?
But she's got a claim to another. I don't know enough about
That's what the government said at the time,
so,
but apparently she doesn't have dual citizenship with Bangladesh.
Right. I thought that had not quite yet been resolved, and I had sort of seen that it was going through another level of court somewhere, and was waiting and seeing what they said. The point I took from it, though, when I was trying to read around it at various times, was, these cases are incredibly complex in international law. The basis on which we should be deciding whether they'll be allowed back into the country or not is what on earth we can prove they did or didn't do. And if they have been radicalized and they are terrorists, then we need to make sure that we absolutely mitigate any risk. If that means that we have to let them in, but they are held on a very tight leash while they're here, well, that's for us to determine. What I can't comment on is the individuals in these particular cases. These are very complex things, but should be actually quite simple. If there's someone who is a terrorist, we definitely, ideally, don't want them to be allowed to do what they like when they come back.
Emily.
Well, obviously, Shamima Begum, I have very, very little sympathy for, as I'm sure many do. I don't really buy the whole grooming argument. I think she kind of made her bed and she needs to lie in it. A lot of people that say we should bring her back and try to eventually kind of reintegrate her. I asked the question, would you want to live next door to Shamima Begum? Would you feel safe with her in your neighbourhood? And I think the answer is quite clearly not.
But surely the point is that if she came back, she would be tried in a court of law.
I know, but I always question whether British law and British justice goes hard enough. We obviously see a lot of life sentences that don't turn into life sentences.
So you'd like to bang her up without trial? And
that's also at the cost of the British taxpayer. I think from the evidence we've seen, it'd be very likely that she would be found guilty of collaborating with ISIS. However, I think the fact that she could come back and then be kept in a British prison at the cost of British taxpayer is quite frankly an insult when she wanted to ruin everything we stand for as a nation.
The fact that she was 15 years old when she went to Syria, does that not play any role in your mind?
Again, I have very little sympathy. I think at 15 you can see right from wrong in joining ISIS. I have very little sympathy.
Well, in terms of the specifics, look, we'll have to wait until the details come out. I think the obvious thing to say is how can we protect Britain and British citizens? So I can't imagine a world in which we're going to allow ISIS people to come back and be free on our streets. Absolutely not is the answer to that. More broadly, how do we protect British citizens? Look, there's a question here about the individuals involved and what happens to them. And look, the absolute starting point is safety and protection. we'll see what happens in terms of the due process. More broadly, how do we protect ourselves from, as you say, the threats of terrorism, which are also apparent at the same time as threats from Russia? It's clearly a far, far more dangerous world.
Colby.
I think I agree with what most people are saying. The priority is national security. First rule of government, you protect the country, protect the citizens, and then we have to look at the threat of letting anyone into the country and what level of threat.
But ultimately, keeping her out is the best way of protecting the country.
Exactly, and I think that's where we are, and that's where, when Priti Patel was Home Secretary, that was the decision she made, I believe.
No, it's Sajid Javid.
Was it Sajid Javid? Oh, okay. But I think it was reinforced by Priti Patel.
I'm sure it was.
Probably. Yeah. I'm sure. And I think, and that's then going to be now a decision for a Home Secretary now. So I think we have to understand where both the public are, where the government needs to be about protecting the people and the country from threats like this.
Right, let's go to Stephen in Horsham. It's a text question. Is trying to ban children from using social media a curb on their civil rights or a necessary evil? Now, more than 60 Labour MPs have signed an open letter urging Sir Keir Starmer to adopt a ban on under-16s using social media platforms, copying the ban introduced in Australia just over a month ago. Well, as the youngest member of the panel, Emily, you know I'm going to come to you first.
Well, I was an avid social media user from the age of about 14. However, I think we've seen a massive shift in social media. And just recently, if you look at the case of Grok, every time I post a photo now on X, I get some hideous replies. And I think the simple fact is that social media now in the world of AI is not a place for children. So I am actually in favour of imposing a ban.
Colby.
I agree with Emily. I'm all for managing the content and the access of children to social media. And I say this also as someone who has two young children who will eventually be potentially influenced and impacted by this. And I haven't thought about this now. I've been thinking about this for quite a long time. Because I've seen social media develop, become, I remember when we first started using it in the early sort of noughties, there was still trolling and bad behaviour on it then. But it's got so much worse, and it's so commercialised, and it's omnipresent. And I think one of the things actually I'm really concerned about is actually in schools, where we're not talking about taking devices away and tablets away and allowing, because schools are now in some way becoming more and more dependent on these things. But I think we have to be clear that this type of access to this product and productising our children in the way that it does has to be controlled. It's something that is toxic. It's not something that helps young people with their mental health, with their approach to life. It's not about education. And I think we do have to find a way of managing it. I'm not for banning things. I am conservative. But in this case, it's about restricting access to this, which is not something that I think young people really need in their lives.
And I just want to add that at 19, when I came out with my conservative views on social media, people were saying that they were going to throw acid in my face, put my house on fire with all my family inside. I could cope with that, but I'm not sure a 16-year-old could.
Coming out as a Conservative nowadays, it's a pretty brave thing to do, isn't it?
Gets worse.
Jeevan, now, correct me if I'm wrong, have you recently got married, or have I imagined?
I have recently got married.
Well, congratulations on that.
Thank you very much.
Is this something that you think about? I mean, I no idea whether you want to have children or not, but assuming you've got married, you probably do. If I was looking to have children now, it would really put me off.
Yeah, I've got nieces and nephews. And firstly, Emily, I'm really sorry to hear you went through that. Like, you're allowed to have conservative views. Of course you are. And the point about democracy is we can have differences of opinion. You should absolutely not have to go through that. I am really, really sorry. Nieces and nephews I have. I'm really worried about the impact it has on them. In terms of a ban, it is on the table. It is being considered. I'm really concerned about two things. The first of which is the safety, as we're covering. AI, completely agree. Being contacted by groomers, completely agree. Having children being driven to suicide because of things they're seeing online, the interactions they're having online, really, really damaging to them and in that sense, their own personal safety. It's very hard to be a parent. I can't imagine how difficult that is, but not knowing what's going on in their bedroom, who they're talking to at any time, that's incredibly worrying. But aside from the safety concern, there's also a functioning and connection concern. If you're spending all your time on your phone, you're not connecting with other human beings. And as human beings, we chase dopamine, we don't chase connection. So the bits of me and you having a conversation, being together, that gets lost if all our lives are spent scrolling, chasing likes. And then we're also chasing what I think is incredibly damaging, which is extreme views that get interactions rather than the normal day-to-day life. So I think both on a safety level, on a connection level, it's incredibly worrying. A ban is absolutely on the table.
Layla Moran, you're a new mother. You're also a Liberal. You're not supposed to like banning things.
I don't, bluntly. On this, I was really struck because my little one is 8 months old and is nowhere near any screens. But
just screams.
Screams, exactly. Not well tonight, so that's what's happening at home. But Molly Russell's father spoke about this quite movingly on a podcast this week. And he said he didn't agree with a ban. And the reason for that, and this is notwithstanding, of course, his daughter tragically taking her own life as a result of what she viewed. And he felt that that was a bit too much of a sledgehammer approach. So the Liberal Democrats have come up with a policy which I think does achieve what we need to achieve, which is that harmful content is policed. Default settings for social media companies is 16. And that's where it starts. But if you tweak your algorithm, if you've got very stringent safeguarding policies, you can have that lowered. Or indeed, if you've got something like Grok on there that undresses people and promotes violence and misogyny and pornography, at that point it becomes 18. And so basically you think of it like a film style certification. We're used to this already, right? We've got 12s, 15s, 18s.
Sounds awfully complicated.
It wouldn't be. We already do it with film. If we can do it with film, we can do it with websites and we can do it with social media sites. And what it would allow is that there are some sites that frankly are relatively harmless. And if you haven't got those, dopamine chasing algorithms that are sitting there in the background, you would then have social media companies recognizing that if they didn't do that, they would have a wider audience and that would serve their commercial purposes. And I think that is a approach that answers the question of we need to do something. And I think on that we are all agreed, and all parents I talk to say the same thing. Please, God, can we just do something soon? But I don't think that this sledgehammer, no social media, end of approach, I just don't think that's going to work.
What is the benefit for children from having the social media engagement? Because this is the world. We let children of any age then have access to the whole world, and the world have access to them.
Well, I'll give you an example. So under the Conservative ban, my understanding is that Wikipedia and WhatsApp would be included because they're essentially user to user. I think that there is value in a young person for a research project being able to go on Wikipedia and searching it.
That's not the best.
That's my understanding.
Wikipedia is not a great source of information.
Well, no, but it
and I think it'll be a benefit to have actually go to proper sites.
Ask any student, guys, and you've probably done it yourselves. It's a place where you often start and then you go from there, right? I don't think that the sledgehammer approach is right. I would prefer a film certification style approach with Ofcom working with family campaigners, working with social media companies, working with government, working with schools, so that we find an approach that will stand the test of time. I worry about a total ban at 16. Where do we go from there? This I think has more chance of lasting 10 years, not just the next 5.
My view is it'll take 10 years for you to even define that. I think, having seen a lot of politics over the last 30 years, and I will be speaking about it, but I think it is about enforcing a position that will already dilute as soon as you get that, because even a ban will be diluted.
But I'll just say there's a reason why the NSPCC backs our position.
With Ofcom, who, by the way, there were plenty of questions about Ofcom's ability to manage that.
But can you explain to me, why does the NSPCC back our position and not yours? Why does the father of Molly Russell back our position?
I'm sure you can bring up several people, and with all respect to Molly Russell's father and the NSP, but I'm sure there are many other people who've also had very tragic instances about their children have seen on social media, the experience they've had, and the tragic concerns they've seen. I've heard from them as well. So there are voices on either side, but I think we have to understand that the damage we are creating to the vast majority of children through social media needs to be managed effectively, strongly by.
We do need to move on, I'm afraid. It's 8:48.
Weekdays from 7 a.m.
They have fatal incompetence.
Straight to the point.
What is the problem they've got over there?
Nick Ferrari at breakfast on LBC.
The country's going backwards. Growth down. Energy prices up.
Listen on our free Global Player app or the new LBC app. Download it now from your app store. LBC. Cross Question with Iain Dale on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
8:51. I do hate to disappoint Dave in Liverpool, who I promised we were going to replay some of his call at 9 o'clock in a further discussion about Donald Trump. But can I just break it to you gently, Dave? Do you have views on Brooklyn Beckham? Because believe it or not, that's what we're going to be talking about after 9 now. Yes, really. Right, our panel consists of Jeevan Sander, Labour MP, Layla Moran, Lib Dem MP, Emily Hewitson, possibly future Conservative MP, or maybe even Reform MP, the way things are going, and Culvia Ranger, Conservative peer. You've got you're not a Reformy type Conservative, are you, at all? No.
That's what they all say.
No, he's known me a long time. He knows.
Right, talking of Reform, Neil in Felixstowe says, Reform say they'll be announcing a defector from Labour tomorrow. Is this enough to wipe out the Tory 2.0 nonsense we all keep hearing from the establishment and no doubt the mainstream media? Jeevan Sander, could you rule yourself out as being the defector tomorrow?
It's going to shock everybody, but I'm absolutely not defecting to Reform.
Any idea who might be?
I can't imagine it's anyone very important.
Well, rumour was Kate Hoey, but apparently it's not Kate Hoey. The other name that's in the frame is Maurice Glassman.
Who?
I mean, the thing is, why would someone from Labour go to Reform? Like, we have very different values.
They have a lot of former Labour voters voting Reform.
But we lost about 9% of the 24 voters gone to that side. But Labour Party, we're here to say every single person should be able to live a decent life. That's what we're about. Now, that differs from the Conservative Party, who say only some people should have a decent... I think the Conservatives would say, if you work hard, you should have a decent life, but actually to everyone else, you're on your own, effectively. And I would say we're living in a country and an economy where, actually, as we've seen, working hard is not a guarantee to being able to earn a decent life. You see that in the affordability crisis, but we've seen that for decades as it happens. But when it comes to Reform, their view is, well, we'll just blame someone else, or we'll just point at someone. If we deport just enough people, we'll solve this country's challenges. And my point to you is that our Labour values is that every single person in this country, we value, we do stronger, and we achieve more when each of us does well, not we blame someone else. So I think it's a very different set of values. I have no idea who it's going to be.
Layla?
No clue. I mean, I don't think it'll be anyone of note. I think what we have, however, is a narrative that seems to be growing of, if you are upset in your own party, not getting what you want, and generally not a nice person, go to Reform and they will accept you with open arms. And I think Reform maybe need to be a bit careful about that, whether it's Labour or former Conservatives that are going over. It is interesting how and I shan't say who, a remaining Conservative MP said to me, there are some in the party who feel this is the best natural laxative the Conservative Party has ever had. Strong words.
Cammy Badenoch more or less said that in her letter.
Well,
to
pretty much, yeah. I mean, someone else described it as spring cleaning, which I think was nicer words. But it is interesting that it is the most disgruntled, the least effective, that seem to be the ones who are defecting. Who knew?
Well, you've had a few defectors in your time, haven't you?
To us, yeah. Well, and most of them didn't last. Most of them didn't last, though, did they? It was a sort of failed experiment.
Well, that says a lot about
we
the
grew our own
maybe.
to 72, and we didn't need a single defector for that. Thank you,
Emily.
Well, Layla, first of all, I do just want to come back on your point of saying that everyone that joins Reform are not a nice person. I think it's wrong to tarnish everyone with the
That's
same.
not what I said.
And I think
that's
that
not what I
creates
said.
a negative.
Can you just make sure you don't put words in my mouth? That's not what I said.
You did say that if they're
the ones that were most recent ones. I mean,
Okay, so you don't believe that Robert Jenrick's a nice person?
No.
Okay.
No.
Do you?
Interesting. I think he's, every time I've met him, he's pretty decent. Whether he's, a principled person is a different question. However, I think the question on Reform and the Conservative Party and Labour Party is a very interesting one, because Reform do have this problem where they're trying to appease those traditional Labour voters and also Conservative voters. And one of the reasons that I haven't gone over yet is because Reform haven't proved that they can be fiscally conservative, and that is kind of their issue.
That word "yet" hung over your answer there. I mean, what would be your red line?
It's a hard one. I always said if Robert Jenrick defects, I would defect. However, I haven't yet, because ultimately they haven't proven that they're fiscally conservative. And as a Conservative, I believe that I'm in the right party, the Conservative Party.
You sound as if you're looking for an excuse to defect.
It's a hard one. I just have to keep reminding myself of my own principles, and the simple fact is that I am a Conservative. I believe I am in the right party, which is the Conservative Party. If the Conservative Party completely loses its identity, as I think it's starting to, then perhaps it's time to jump ship, but that would be a shame.
Colville?
I don't know who will go from Labour. If it's Maurice Glassman, I think you suggested it'd be a deep shame, because I think he's a great parliamentarian, great principled man, good for the Labour Party, stretches the Labour Party. And I think, Emily, quite rightly, it's about values. We know what Labour values are. We know what Conservative values are. We don't really know what Reform's values are. It's not a value-based party. It's an individual deciding what's right or wrong, what they're trying to do, point-to-point fixing, we'll fix this, we'll fix that. Okay. And also, if you're going to become a party that represents a significant constituency in this country, you have to be a broad church. You have to have these two sides that you'll bring people together, and you have to continue to grow. That doesn't seem to me what's happening with the gradual sort of whoever comes over to Reform. They seem to be replicating themselves, and that's a narrow grouping of people that I think will not expand. So to be a fully formed, functioning party like the Liberal Democrats, like Labour, like the Conservative, you have to be a broad church. You have to demonstrate your values. You have to stick to your values, and you have to have the leadership that can be spread across a group of people. Reform lacks all of that, and I think it will struggle to gain that, which is why I think it will struggle at the end to be a truly major party.
Right, Stephanie in Exeter says NASA is inviting people to send their name in to have it fly around the moon on a rocket ship later this year. But if you were picking the name of just one person to be an ambassador for all humans and for their name to be shown off to whoever else might be out there in the galaxy, who should it be and why? Layla.
I really want to go to the moon. I really do. It wouldn't be my name, but the thought of like going out, and it causes fights in my family because everyone else is like, you'd leave us behind? I'm like, yeah, in a heartbeat. In a heartbeat I'd go. I did a physics degree for what it's worth. Like, I grew up dreaming about this. I have no idea. What is in a name? I'm not sure the point of just having one
cut
name.
The flannel. Give us a name.
Brooklyn Beckham. How about that, Ian?
Louise. Definitely Louise.
Louise.
My wife.
I assumed that was the
brownie
case.
point.
Yeah, that would be the one. I agree with Layla. The one reason I would want to have a lot of money is to be able to go to space. It was my dream to be an astronaut when I was younger, and I tried to convince my mum to move to Texas so I could go to space camp. I was unsuccessful.
Well, you're PPS in the right department, because I think space comes in.
Well, DSIT, I think, is where it actually sits underneath. So, unfortunately, with Peter's old job, but with the new one.
Oh, well. Lucked out there. Emily?
If NASA have capabilities to bring someone back from the dead, it'd have to be my beloved Queen Elizabeth II. Otherwise, I guess it's got to be Elton John, just purely on the fact that he sings Rocket Man.
Very good. Colville?
I have no desire to go to space. I'm quite happy on planet Earth. I quite like being here. I like, living here. And I've seen too many space movies where it all goes horribly wrong. And I'm thinking, I don't want to be with Hal up there, or I don't want to be on some ship that's sort of falling apart and hoping I'll get back. So, no, thank you. I'm quite happy on Earth. But if it's a name, probably my second son's name, Amrit, which was chosen by my wife. So it wasn't the one I chose. I chose the first son. But Amrit is sort of the Punjabi Sikh word for blessing. And I think he's blessing, but I think blessing Amrit would be the word.
And we finished the programme with a very gooey feeling. Colville, thank you very much indeed. Thank you to all of our panel. On tomorrow's panel, we have the Conservative frontbencher Andrew Griffith, Green Party London Assembly member Zoe Garbett, the entrepreneur and former Dragon's Den investor Richard Farley, and the anti-racism activist Iman Aiton, apologies. So they'll be with me tomorrow night from 8. Coming up in the next hour, Brooklyn Beckham has launched an astonishing attack on his parents as he finally addressed their long-standing feud. The eldest son of David and Victoria took to Instagram tonight to share a 6-page statement where he said he has no wish to reconcile with his family and is standing up for himself for the first time in his life. He said that his parents' obsession with the brand Beckham caused him such anxiety he doesn't want to reach out or talk to them again. So I want to ask you for your own experiences. Have you ever fallen out of touch with your parents or another significant family member? How hard is it to reach out and reconnect, or have you closed that door forever?
On your radio, on the LBC app, and
Play LBC.
leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC.
From Global's newsroom at 9 o'clock, Donald Trump says he will 100% follow through on plans to slap tariffs on America's closest allies if he doesn't secure Greenland. The US president's threatened imports taxes on the UK and 7 other European countries. Danish journalist Morten Runneland thinks he may be trying to pressure us to reach 5% of GDP for spending on defence.
Maybe it's a piece of theatre to give us some urgency to ramp up on spending on military, and then we can fix the Ukraine situation ourselves. But many Danes also feel that it's not only about security, it's not only about NATO. There are minerals. There is oil in Greenland, and maybe he's after that.
Cabinet Minister Douglas Alexander told LBC that Britain successfully negotiated Trump's tariffs before.
It's not just that we've seen this movie before, we've played our part in that movie before. We went to work with quiet, disciplined diplomacy, and we secured not only the first deal, but the best deal of any country as a consequence of that. So there is a playbook to try and navigate between the signal and the noise coming from the president.
Kemi Badenoch says Tory MPs who want to undermine or destroy the party from within will be dealt with firmly and fairly. In a letter seen by LBC, the Conservative leader urged them to move on from recent defections. One of those was the ex-Shadow Cabinet Minister Andrew Rossendale.
We need to get rid of this Labour government, and we need to bring people of like mind together to ensure that the next election we get a right-wing government or right-of-centre government in power with Nigel as Prime Minister.
The newly retired head of West Midlands Police has been referred to the watchdog. It's over Craig Guildford's handling of the visit of Maccabi Tel Aviv to Aston Villa. The area's police watchdog says holding the force to account is a top priority. The Duke of Sussex says he was made to feel paranoid beyond belief by alleged unlawful information gathering by the Daily Mail's publishers. Prince Harry is among 7 high-profile claimants in a court case. Associated Newspapers denies wrongdoing. The fashion designer Valentino has been described by Italy's Prime Minister as the undisputed master of style and elegance. He's died aged 93. And Brooklyn Beckham says he doesn't want to reconcile with his family. The 26-year-old claims his parents have been trying to endlessly ruin his relationship with his wife. Sir David and Lady Beckham have been contacted for comment. In the city, the FTSE 100 closed down 39 points at 10,195. The pound buys $1.34 and €1.15. LBC weather, patchy rain tonight. Later this will become confined to northern England and Scotland. A low of -1. Lingering rain in the far north and east. Tomorrow will clear, highs of 11 degrees. From Global's newsroom for LBC, I'm Matt Hewitt.
This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation with Iain Dale.
Hello, a very good evening. It's 5 minutes past 9 on LBC. Well, one of the big news stories of this evening, believe it or not, surrounds Brooklyn Beckham, the eldest son of David and Victoria Beckham. He's 26 years old. I always think of him as like 12 or something, but he's actually 26. Well, he has launched what is being called an astonishing attack on his parents. He's claimed he's been controlled by a family that value public promotion above all else. Now, he's posted a 6-page statement. What was it Ronan Keating used to say? You say it best when you say nothing at all. Possibly he needed to take that advice. Anyway, 6-page statement posted on Instagram this evening. He's announced that he has no wish to reconcile with his family and is standing up for himself for the first time in his life. He wrote on the post, "For my entire life, my parents have controlled narratives in the press about our family. The performative social media posts, he knows all about those, family events and inauthentic relationships have been a fixture of the life I was born into. Recently, I've seen with my own eyes the lengths that they'll go through to place countless lies in the media, mostly at the expense of innocent people, to preserve their own facade. But I believe the truth always comes out." Now, he married the model and heiress Nicola Peltz, who's 5 years older than him, in April 2022. He claimed that my parents have been trying endlessly to ruin my relationship since before my wedding, and it hasn't stopped. He alleged that his mother, Victoria, had cancelled making Nicola's dress at the 11th hour, despite how excited she was to wear her design, forcing her to urgently find a new dress. Brooklyn also confirmed previous reports that his mother hijacked the first dance at the wedding, writing, "In front of our 500 wedding guests, Mark Antony called me to the stage, where in the schedule was planned to be my romantic dance with my wife, but instead my mum was waiting to dance with me. She danced very inappropriately on me," dear oh dear, "in front of everybody. I've never felt more uncomfortable or humiliated in my entire life." He added that the couple wanted to renew their vows so we could create new memories of our wedding day that bring us joy and happiness, not anxiety and embarrassment. He also claimed that my mum has repeatedly invited women from my past into our lives in ways that were clearly intended to make us both uncomfortable. Now, it was reported in last May that Brooklyn and Nicola snubbed his father David's milestone 50th birthday party. But Brooklyn wrote that, in fact, the couple had travelled to London for the event, but were rejected for a week as we waited in our hotel room trying to plan quality time with him. Brooklyn continued quite a lot. He refused all our attempts unless it was at his big birthday party with 100 guests and cameras at every corner. When he finally agreed to see me, it was under the condition that Nicola wasn't invited. It was a slap in the face. Later, when my family travelled to LA, they refused to see me at all. Concluding his statement, you may be relieved to hear, Brooklyn wrote, "My family values public promotion and endorsements above all else. Brand Beckham comes first." He claimed that he and his wife had gone out of our way for years to show up and support every fashion show, every party, and every press activity to show our perfect family. But the one time my wife asked for my mum's support to save displaced dogs during the LA fires, my mum refused. He also hit out at the narrative that my wife controls me, calling it completely backwards. "I've been controlled by my parents for most of my life," he wrote. "I grew up with overwhelming anxiety. For the first time in my life since stepping away," well, he's hit it well, hasn't he? "For the first time in my life since stepping away from my family, that anxiety has disappeared. I wake up every morning grateful for the life I chose and have found peace and relief. My wife and I do not want a life shaped by image, press, or manipulation. All we want is peace, privacy, and happiness for us and our future family." Well, well, well. I wonder what David and Victoria Beckham have to say about that. I think probably everyone listening has been involved at some stage in their lives with some sort of family feud. I mean, this does seem to be a pretty major one, doesn't it? I'd like to think that I would never get into a situation where I would be well, I certainly couldn't have ever imagined having that kind of situation with my parents. I mean, I always got on really, really well with my parents. I absolutely adored them. They adored me. I can't actually remember a cross word that I ever had with my mother and father. And certainly they always gave me the freedom to pursue my own career. As many of you know, I came from a farming family and I was always expected to take over the farm. But I knew from a very young age I didn't want to, and they never, ever put any pressure on me to do so, and I'll always be grateful for that. But not everyone has that idyllic relationship. I'm sure there are other relationship within families that can go wrong very, very easily. I remember one Christmas, my grandmother suddenly said to her son-in-law, "Well, you've never liked me, have you?" And we all sort of it was like in slow motion. I can remember it now. I think I was only about 12. And all the children were immediately sent out of the room. And that was clearly some sort of, I wouldn't say it was a feud, but it was clearly a relationship that hadn't been a happy one ever since he'd married her daughter about sort of 25 years previously. So I suppose we've all had a little bit of experience of falling out with family members. I remember the last time we talked about family feuds, I think it was someone called Sue said that she rang up and she said that she'd had a feud with her sister for, I think, 10 years, but she was going to ring up that sister and try and mend it. So if you're listening, I'd love to know what happened. So have you ever been involved in a family feud like there is with the Beckhams here? This is in full public gaze. Most family feuds are not. Well, at least I hope they're not, because I think a lot of people do prefer to wash their dirty linen in private rather than in public. But if you're in the public eye, obviously it gets in the papers. 0345 6060 973. Have you fallen out with your parents or children or siblings? And if you eventually managed to reconnect with them, how did you do it and how difficult was that to achieve? 0345 6060 973. Caroline Frost joins me, an entertainment journalist. Caroline, very good evening to you. This seems to be the end. I mean, there's not much prospect of reconciliation after this statement, is there? Why now?
Oh, my goodness. I mean, I really did enjoy your reading Brooklyn's statement, Iain. Thank you. Why now? Because this has been bubbling for the best part of, well, certainly a year, but now we're hearing that all the troubles began on the wedding day, if not before. So what we have is a sort of a dynastic clash of cultures. The Beckhams are, what are they? They are our non-royal family, and we know that Brooklyn was their eldest, much-loved son. They've got 4 children, and since David's footballing finished, and Victoria has, I suppose, had varying fortunes with her fashion and beauty industry, although it seems to be going quite well these days, their family brand has become their commercial imperative. I've always been impressed by this seamless, slick operation where they've commodified every event, whether it's a holiday, a Christmas dinner, some sort of apparently casual, effortless family day out. And of course, they've got millions of followers. As you said, everybody has had a family feud, but not everybody gets to play it out in front of 100 million plus social media followers. So there's this great triangulation between them, each other, A and B, and us. But I guess Brooklyn, he's the person we've never heard from. This is the mouse that has suddenly roared into life, and it has left people gasping. All of my WhatsApp groups, I mean, to a man and a woman, have been just saying, what is going on? And because I guess it's like
I think I belong to very different WhatsApp groups.
You do. It's very refreshing explaining it to you. But I guess you could ask, and you'd be right to say, why does this matter? I think the reason is because David Beckham has 88 million followers on social media. Victoria Beckham has a mere 33 million. This is more than populations of many countries of the world. And people are investing in a brand that they believe to be based, because we've always been told for 30 years now that it is on family values, on closeness, on looking out for each other. If one of us pricks, we all bleed, all of these narratives. And what we've got is an insider of this corporation stroke family saying it's built on sand, it's performative, it's fantastical narratives, it's not true. I mean, we should also, little asterisk, Brooklyn hasn't done too badly. He's been called in various newspapers the chef Brooklyn Beckham. I mean, he's not a chef. He's somebody who's flips some burgers and sells chili sauce because of his name. He's done remarkably well out of all of these things.
But what does he actually do?
Oh, a variety of things. I think there was a time he was a photographer, and of course he took a picture of that elephant, which turned out to be out of focus. And he said, very difficult to photograph, but beautiful to see. I mean, he's been variously a fashion photographer. I think he's now developing a sauce range, condiments, with his very, very rich and experienced father-in-law, Nelson Peltz, who used to be the director of Heinz. So he knows a thing or two about sauces. But Brooklyn, I think everybody says he's nice, though. Nobody's ever said he's horrible. You get these horrible Seons who are both thick and arrogant. I don't think anybody's ever said he's arrogant. But he's married a young lady over on the other side of the world. He's fallen in with an even more, well, they might not have the fame and the celebrity of the Beckhams, but they can certainly make up for that with their wallets. And he has somehow had a bit of a reckoning. We've seen this before with Prince Harry. We've seen it recently with Adam Peaty. There seems to be a bit of a stream at the moment of young men deciding to put all their chips on the wife. You know, people say happy wife, happy life. These young men are taking that and applying it to their lives. I mean, we just have to hope that that marriage continues and goes well, because he has burnt his bridges.
Well, he certainly has. But you would hope at some point there would be some sort of reconciliation. But on the basis of what, I mean, I haven't read the whole 6-page statement yet, but I mean, if this article is accurate in terms of what it contains, I mean, there is unlikely to be a reconciliation very soon, I would imagine.
Well, not only that, but I was just thinking, Elliot, he's pretty much the only person that could have done this to the Beckhams. I mean, this is arguably the worst thing to happen to them since that red card in 1998, because their entire brand is about harmony. And if all else fails, we know that various accusations of betrayal and infidelity were levelled at them. They batted those things off years ago, and they have sailed on as this sort of the very sedate ship of togetherness. And he is right in the core of that. For a while, he was their only child. He's now the oldest and much loved of the four. And he has said, it's built on sticks. And I think that is really quite a phenomenon in this celebrity culture age. I know, and I appreciate you don't buy into it, Iain. I'm so pleased you don't. But for many, many people, it's one of those, never mind the reunion or lack of it, what does it say about the Beckhams that somebody right at the heart of them can say, what you see is not what you get?
Well, I imagine the Beckhams will be calling their crisis PR advisors tonight and deploying them with their friends in the media over the next couple of days. Caroline, thank you very much indeed. That's Caroline Frost, the entertainment journalist. 0345 6060 973. Have you or are you now involved? Have you been or are you now involved in a family feud? How did it start? How long's it been going on for? And do you actually secretly hope that there is a way of reconciling? Or has this happened to you? And you have been involved in a feud, but in the end, one of you decided to pick up the phone to the other and say, this has gone on for far too long. 0345 6060 973. I'll leave you with this unfortunate thought from one of our listeners who says, some mothers still enjoy bathing their sons when they're in their 20s. It's 18 minutes past 9.
This is LBC.
Hi, babe.
Iain Dale. Text 84850. This is LBC.
20 past 9 on LBC. Balaji says, Brooklyn, who? He's nothing without David and Posh. If he hates his parents so much, I hope he inherits zero money. Otherwise, he's a hypocrite. Standing up for himself, please. Echoing Joan Rivers there. He had 26 years to do it. Go get an MBA from Wharton or Stanford. What did he do? Zilch. entitled children. Well, that's a little bit unkind, I think. He's clearly quite an unhappy guy. He clearly blames his parents for that unhappiness, and some of the anecdotes he's given, you can kind of understand why. Okay, we've only heard his side of the story, but I don't think any of us can dispute the anecdotes that he gives in this story, and it's pretty horrendous. I mean, what kind of mother thinks she should have the first dance at her son's wedding? I mean, I challenge anybody who's listening now to ring me up and say, oh, yeah, that happened at my wedding. It just, I mean, the very thought of it is indicative, isn't it? I just don't understand how any parent could act in that way. Josh says, as someone who's not spoken to my parents for over 2 decades, I was totally moved by his brave story. They've forgotten how to be parents whilst trying to stay relevant celebrities. Very sad all round. Secretly wish the Netflix documentary was in their house when they read those messages, though. Well, that's an interesting one. Let's go to Noel McDermott, who's a psychotherapist and broadcaster, who's the founder of Mental Health Works. Noel, very good evening to you. Now, from what you've read, from what you've heard about this story so far, what do you make of Brooklyn Beckham's motivation for doing this? And I mean, it seems to me that he thinks this will close a chapter in his life, but will it?
No, I mean, it's starting a new one, I guess. But I mean, I've worked quite a lot with sort of high-profile families, and there are specific stresses and strains that exist on particularly somebody like him who grew up in public, and how that psychology develops in relationship to the public sphere. So it's not that unusual to see this dramatic statement, because that's the culture he's grown up in. And there's also, just thinking about money and stuff like that, there's money to be made, I think, from these types of dramatic things, so that it gets attention and gets followers and all of that sort of stuff. Psychologically, one wonders whether this is this sort of separation and individuation, which you'd sort of expect earlier, but is often in these cases put off because of the closeted lifestyle that young people in this situation often have.
I don't particularly want to pass judgment on the Beckham's idea of what good parenting is, but clearly Brooklyn Beckham feels let down by his parents and the way that they parented him. I mean, from what I've read in the papers, and that's all I've got to go, and I've never met any of them, but he does seem to have turned out a reasonably balanced young man, even though he's clearly been traumatized. I don't think that's too big a word. Traumatized by aspects of his childhood.
I think that's right, and that small T trauma isn't too strong a word. It might even be big T trauma in there, actual events that have happened. It's a very strange lifestyle for somebody to grow up in that way, and to live sort of behind security walls, etc., etc. And it does seem that he is trying to plough his own furrow rather than just simply sort of take what's given to him. So that side of things, I think I would agree with you, Ian. It's admirable in that sense. Whether sort of doing it in public in this way, I mean, it's difficult for me, but, it's not my generation as well, and it's not my culture. So I certainly wouldn't choose to do it this way. I was brought up very much in the sort of family model, which was that you discuss things within the family, you don't take it outside. But then he's never had that model of upbringing. He's only had the model of being very public. And I suppose his points about his life has been monetized by this corporation is absolutely correct. I mean, that's a statement of fact. But I don't see really how he's going to escape from that necessarily. So he's going to have to find some way of working with it for himself.
Isn't there a touch of the Prince Harry's about this, where he finishes his statement where he says, all we want is peace, privacy and happiness for us and our future family. Well, if you want privacy, you don't do this sort of thing, do you? Because you know that it's going to make headline news. You know that radio stations are going to do phone-ins on it. It's hardly a sign that you want privacy, just as when Prince Harry and Meghan moved to America to say that they wanted privacy, and all they've done in their time in America is court publicity.
And that's right. I wonder if it is going to be different for him. I was thinking about that situation. I talked to you about it when it was all happening as well. But in this situation, I wonder whether he actually can forge a path that doesn't involve him monetizing his own name. Meghan and Harry have had to monetize their own name to keep the income coming in, and that's the way it works in those types of circles. I suspect that he's also going to have to do the same thing, because that's what he knows how to do, unless this new family that he's married into are willing to support him, because the point has been made. What else is he going to do? He doesn't have an MBA, he doesn't have a degree in something else, a career to fall back on. And some families in the public eye will push their kids into learning a career. So I know some musicians that have required their kids to go and learn how to do ordinary jobs, as it were, so they have something to fall back on, but not in this case.
Noel, thank you very much indeed. That's Noel McDermott, the psychotherapist and broadcaster. Right, let's go to your calls. Let's go to Michael in Streatham. I really want to hear from you. If you are in the middle of a family feud, or if you've had one, how did it end, if it did? Michael, hi.
Hi, Ian. So I've just had a reunion with my sister after almost 24 years.
Wow.
It's been a huge, cataclysmic, profound thing in my life. I mean, she was born when I was 12, and my mother had remarried and left my father. And my mother used to tell me on an almost daily basis after she remarried that she didn't want me anymore, and that she hated me, and that it was very violent, and it was very traumatic. So eventually I went back to live with my father, and never heard from my sister again. And I then developed cancer, and as a musician, they removed the roof of my mouth, all my teeth, and rebuilt it all, and I was planning to sing. And so to cut a long story short, I had a lovely celebrity friend who helped me to make my first album after my cancer treatment, and there was publicity online, and my sister found it. And she then contacted me in August of last year through a message on Facebook, and she said, I too am now distanced from our mother, and I've gone into therapy because of the abuse, and I'd love to meet you and to introduce you to my nephew and my niece. And it's been absolutely wonderful ever since. Huge thing in my life.
It must have been quite a decision to do that, though.
I think it was very courageous of her, and...
Well, but also of you.
Well, do you know, Ian, I have prayed for so long to be in contact with her again. There was one brief time when I tried to speak with my mother to gain some understanding about what happened, and my sister then was 14, and I met her just a couple of times. That attempt to reconcile with my mother, or to get some understanding of why she did what she did, was failed. But in the times I met my sister, I felt a very strong bond with her, and I'd never forgotten about her, and wondered through my life how she was, and if she was married, and if she had children. So for both of us, it was courageous, but I think my experience, I hope, can go out there and demonstrate to people that it's worth, if you think it's appropriate, to take the step, because wonderful things can happen, and we can heal if there's willingness.
Look, I think there are always situations which can be retrieved, but there are others that just never will be. And I remember the last time we talked about this subject, hearing from one or two people who was saying, well, I hear what you say about picking up the phone, because I think I did a little sort of homily about, well, look, if you've got somebody in this situation, why not just pick up the phone to them? What's the worst that can happen? Well, I suppose the worst that can happen is rejection.
Yes, indeed. And she didn't pick up the phone. She sent me a message first. I think these things have to be carefully considered.
Yeah.
It would have been entirely inappropriate to pick up the phone in that situation. And I think what happened is, step by step, then we had a video call that lasted 3 hours.
Wow.
Where we talked.
Well, a lot to catch up on for 24 years.
Indeed, indeed. So, but, the need was there to have that connection. And we both share similar history and wanted to support each other. So it's been a blessing in my life, really.
Well, I'm glad it all worked out for you, Michael. I suspect that over the next half an hour we're going to hear from one or two people that either it hasn't worked out or where you just don't even want to make the first move. And if the other side made the first move, you would reject it. But let's have some positive stories too here. And if you were advising Brooklyn Beckham now, what would you advise him to do? Because he clearly has no intention of ever having any contact with his parents again. But if he does have children, he's depriving them of grandparents, isn't he? But then he might think, well, they're not the kind of influence that I want on my children, I suppose. Michael, thank you very much indeed. 0345 6060 973. You're listening to LBC. I'm Iain Dale. It's 9:32. Here's Matt Hewitt with the news headlines.
Donald Trump says he will 100% follow through on plans to slap tariffs on America's closest allies if he doesn't secure Greenland. The US president's threatened import taxes on the UK and 7 other European countries. The newly retired head of West Midlands Police has been referred to the watchdog. It's over Craig Guilford's handling of the visit of Maccabi Tel Aviv to Aston Villa. The Duke of Sussex says he was made to feel paranoid beyond belief by alleged unlawful information gathering by the Daily Mail's publishers. Prince Harry is among 7 high-profile claimants in a court case. Associated Newspapers denies wrongdoing. LBC weather. Patchy rain tonight, later becoming confined to northern England and Scotland. Mostly dry elsewhere, a low of -1. Lingering rain in the far north and east tomorrow will clear. Highs of 11 degrees.
LBC. This is LBC with Iain Dale. Call 0345 6060 973.
9:35. Scott in West Hampstead texts this. I think that I've had a permanent fallout with my eldest brother who lives in Alabama. We stopped emailing each other many months ago, and the fallout is all about Donald Trump. He likes and votes for Trump, but I tell him in my emails that Trump should be in jail and not in the White House. I don't think that there will ever be a reconciliation between us, and emails between us here now ceased long ago. That's very sad that people fall out about politics, but we had all of that with Brexit as well, didn't we? But that kind of links into my next guest. We're going to come back to your calls on feuds, family feuds, in just a few moments' time. But let's talk to Mitchell Rees. We've talked a lot about Donald Trump and Greenland, et cetera, relations with Europe on the programme tonight. So I just want to talk to Mitchell about that. He's an American diplomat who worked for 5 US administrations, including at the White House and State Department, and was also the US Special Envoy to Northern Ireland, and he's now a Distinguished Fellow at the Royal United Services Institute in London. Mitchell, very good evening. What do you make of the latest developments, particularly with Donald Trump and Greenland, and what the long-term effects might be on transatlantic relations?
Well, I think, Ian, it's a little surprising that people are surprised by the way this president is behaving. You heard the administration's view towards Europe last February at the Munich Security Conference by the vice president. You then had the Liberation Day tariffs that targeted Europe. You had him calling Canada the 51st state. You have the national security strategy issued in December, in which he is hypercritical of Europe and the civilizational erasure that he's predicting. And now you have Greenland. So this is all of a piece. And again, it's surprising that anybody should be surprised by this behavior.
How should Britain in particular react to this? Because Keir Starmer, I think, has been relatively successful compared to other European leaders in developing a relationship with Donald Trump. But it seems to me that maybe that's after a year now, it's not going to work anymore.
Well, I can cite a very famous quote from our Revolutionary War, which I think it was Benjamin Franklin said, "We either hang together or we hang separately." And I think the same is true for Europe. And so there's strength in numbers. Collectively, Europe has as much population, as much GDP as the United States. It is a force to be reckoned with if you can act collectively. So there's that. I don't think that any state should do anything unilaterally. But you really have 3 choices. You can defy the president and stop being bullied by him and see what happens. You can acquiesce and bend the knee. And I think you'll see that more will come from that. It's not going to stop. Appeasement rarely does work. Or you can hedge your bets and try and balance the United States. And we've seen some of that with the free trade deals with South America. But those are the 3 choices in broad terms. None of them are particularly palatable. The best, of course, is for the United States to recommit itself to NATO and to being a proper ally.
Which it seems very unlikely to do at the moment. And I mean, particularly with the Greenland issue, now it may be that Trump is heavy on the rhetoric and in the end will back down, but who knows? If he doesn't, it basically means the end of NATO and the end of the world order as we've known it for the last 70 odd years, doesn't it? And in that case, European countries have got some very, very difficult decisions to make.
Well, before we get there, we should note that there is a working group that is quietly meeting on these issues led by the Secretary of State. It's never proper or useful to negotiate in the media as the administration's been doing. It'd be interesting to know what's actually happening behind closed doors. The president, I think, would rather have Denmark capitulate than to have a full-fledged a break fissure with Europe, but we don't know that. And you're absolutely right, Ian. Europe is having a day of reckoning. The Cold War, post-war order is rapidly unraveling. And it's not just over Greenland. The United States has withdrawn from lots of multinational institutions dealing with climate change, dealing with other things that countries in Europe care deeply about. And also the United States isn't the beacon of promoting democracy and defending human rights around the world. We haven't seen any of that rhetoric from this administration. It's not in the national security strategy. So the conclusion is that Europe and the United States no longer share the same values and increasingly don't share the same interests. And as somebody who now lives in the UK, married a British citizen, has spent much of his life trying to work closely and successfully with my European counterparts, it greatly saddens me.
You've always struck me as a sort of traditional Republican. What are traditional Republicans in America making of this? Because I saw a poll today that showed that 70% of Republicans do not agree with Donald Trump on Greenland. Now, that seems to be a very, very high figure. I wouldn't necessarily have predicted that. But given that there are important midterm elections in November, Trump has got to do things which are popular, and clearly this isn't popular with virtually anybody in the States.
Well, you're right, Ian. The president has a 36% approval rating at the end of December. It was the lowest of any president in the last 50 years after his first year in office. He's not doing well. I think he's trying to reach for issues that he thinks will score well with the voting public. Clearly, Greenland doesn't appear to be that issue. And so the president has this last year before the midterms where he's, let's say, peak Trump, at least in terms of foreign policy, assuming that the Democrats win back the House of Representatives, which traditionally appears likely. Why that's important is because it then allows them to control the budget. They have subpoena power to force U.S. officials, government officials to testify, and they can set the agenda through committee hearings. So how this goes in November, if the Democrats can flip the House, then that really would start to see a greater balance between the two branches of government, the executive and the legislative.
When you look at the different things that have happened over the past few days, where he's accepted Mrs. Mercado's Nobel Peace Prize, which she presented to him at the White House. He has imposed the tariffs on Britain and other EU members. He's texted the Norwegian Prime Minister, basically blaming him for the fact that he didn't get the Nobel Peace Prize. He's now wants to put Vladimir Putin on this board of peace for Gaza, although that seems to be something that looks to be a much more wide thing than just Gaza. And he's consulted Greg Norman about Venezuela. I mean, these are not the actions of a lucid man, are they?
Well, they're not the actions of somebody who has a strategy, who has a plan, who has a vision. All of it seems very impulsive and quite transient. So perhaps the president will end his fixation on Greenland, move on to something else. But you've omitted some very important points. The president has called out the regime in Iran and sided with the demonstrators, and yet has provided no real help. He's abducted the president of Venezuela, but apparently has no plan for the day after. So a lot of these seem to be just whimsical or, again, not thought out, not planned, not strategic. And Greenland, I think, falls into that category. What is he talking about taking over Greenland? Are we really going to send in the 82nd Airborne? And then what happens again the day after? So a lot of this is just unprecedented, Ian, and it's highly disturbing for people in the United States as well as Europe. And again, there's no respite in sight until the midterms.
Thank you very much indeed for joining us, Mitchell. That's Dr. Mitchell Rees there, American diplomat. Now, going back to family feuds, Rob says, unfortunately, I haven't spoken to my sister for nearly 5 years. We were inseparable growing up in a terribly abusive and chaotic household. It was just a silly argument one Christmas. I've tried reaching out, but as time goes by, it's harder and harder to reconcile. It breaks my heart that the relationship we had was ruined over a meaningless row. She's emigrated now, and I fear we will never make things right. I would tell anybody, if you do fall out with a family member, make things right as soon as you can, because as you said, the longer you leave it, the more likely it is it will be too late. It's easily the biggest regret of my life. Well, I wonder if that's something that you would advise the Beckhams to do, to reach out to Brooklyn Beckham after this very public statement and try and understand why he said what he's said. Or do you think that's just it? There is no reconciliation possible. When you make a 6-page public statement like this, there's no going back. 0345 6060 973. It's 9:45.
Coming up at 10 on LBC, Ben Kentish.
Keir Starmer finally started to stand up to Donald Trump today, but is that a fight the Prime Minister can win? Plus, we'll look at the devastating attack by Brooklyn Beckham on his own parents.
Ben Kentish at 10. Listen on our free Global Player app or the new LBC app. Dale on LBC.
9:48, Gordon says, my mother fell out with her sister towards the end of her life. I was instructed not to get in touch after her death, but in the event I did. I felt it was not my feud to continue, and my aunt came to Mum's funeral and has been a great support ever since. I hope I did the right thing. Well, I think you did, Gordon. I think that's absolutely the right thing to do. Let's go to Sue in Rill. Hello, Sue.
Hi, Ian. We spoke probably before Christmas about my sister. Your programme changed the course of things that happened.
Go on. For good, I hope.
No, really good.
Oh, yeah, thank goodness for that.
I heard after I heard, when I spoke to you, I gave her a call. We've been in contact. Things aren't the same. Partly because she's been in Australia for a month, but anyway. But we've had multiple conversations. We've agreed to meet face to face. And when the problem that caused us to fall out, when we used to speak every night, came up, was just like, no, put that to the side. We'll deal with that on a different day.
Well, that seems a very adult way to deal with things.
Yes, and I feel so much better. So can I just thank you for that? Because if it wasn't for your show that night and what you were saying, I wouldn't have called her.
So you actually called her rather than messaged her. So you just straight picked.
No, I called her.
Yeah.
Yes. As soon as I spoke to you, I phoned her and she answered the phone straight away. And she went, I wondered when you were going to call me.
And were you tempted to say, well, you could have called me?
Exactly. Which is exactly what I said.
That's what sisters do, isn't it? And so how long did that initial conversation last?
probably about 45 minutes. Talked about what she's been doing. I'm the baby of the family, so I'm 11 years younger than my sister. And then I've got older brothers and sisters as well. One who sadly died last year. But anyway, so I'm the baby. And sometimes that comes into play that you think, they treat you like the baby all the time. But things are really good, and it is thanks to you. So can I just say thank you? Well, and life is too short to fall out with people.
My absolute pleasure to have facilitated it. But did you tell her that you'd been talking about it on the radio?
I did, yes.
What did she say?
She said, "You're nuts."
Well, at least she didn't say, "Oh, you haven't been talking to that ghastly Iain Dale, have you?"
No, but I just want to thank you because I'm really stubborn. She's very stubborn. And I think you get past the point where you're thinking, I'm not going to do this. I'm not phoning. I didn't do anything wrong.
Yeah.
And then there's two perspectives to every story. And sometimes you just somebody needs to they need to reach out and just say, this is ridiculous. We've been sisters. I'm 54. We've been sisters for 54 years. We're going to not speak over a 20-minute argument. Is that really the most important thing? And, what's going on around the world? People just want to live their lives, and they need their family, and they need people around them. And you just sometimes need to take a step back and just appreciate what you have. The little things don't matter.
Mm. And are your parents still with us?
No, unfortunately, my mum died in 2018 and she lived with me in the last 10 years of her life. But we were both very close. My sister was the sister I hated when I was little because she was the really swotty one that went to Cambridge and was revising all the time. And I was an annoying younger sister. But I appreciate everything she's done for me. Your family's there for you. They annoy you. They anger you. You have disagreements. You fall out. But you need to just remember the good times, not the bad times, because there's more good than bad.
The only reason I asked that question was because I think a lot of feuds can be put to rest by saying, well, what on earth would our parents make of this if they were still alive?
Well, I actually said that to her on the phone. I said, Mum would be looking down on us going, you're nuts, knock your heads together, just sort it out.
And you did. Congratulations.
And thank you again.
Thanks a lot, Sue. Well, that is. I kind of wish Sue was the last call of the hour now, because that would have been a really nice way to end, wouldn't it? But I'm really glad, because I remember saying when I had that conversation with Sue, it was just before Christmas, and I think I said, "Oh, please ring me on my Christmas Day programme and tell me it all went well." And when she didn't, I did fear the worst. So I'm very glad that it did work out. Right, let's go to David in Hampstead. Hello, David.
Hi, Ian. How are you?
Good, thank you. What would you like to say?
Well, actually, it's also a happy ending.
Oh, thank goodness.
Don't worry. We had trouble growing up. My father was very short-tempered, and we grew up living on eggshells, really. And it was after I left home and went to university in Nottingham and just went away from it all that I was able to build my own life and my own confidence, and then was able to, through therapy, go back and talk to my parents about it all, and I was encouraged to do so, and now we have a wonderful relationship. But it was very difficult initially, and I had to get out of there, and I had to get away from them.
And what conversations did you have along the way?
It took so long. I was in denial for so long. I wasn't able to talk to them, and then we just sat down. We sat down, and I remember at a coffee shop, and it was I'll never forget it. It was the most difficult conversation I've ever had in my life, and I said all the things that, all the arguments, all the sleepless nights, all the times I was scared, and I thought they would be so angry at me or upset, and they were just shocked. They didn't know what it had caused me and my younger brother and my older sister. They just had no idea what they just didn't realize was a conversation that needed to happen, and it fixed a lot of things.
The fact that they didn't realise, though, I mean, that's. I mean, it's quite difficult to come to terms with the fact that they didn't realise what you were both going through.
I look back and I just think, how could they not see how scared we all were, lack of confidence, trouble at school, the anxiety, everything. And it was because of what was happening at home. And I just think, I don't blame them in a way. I understand my father's mother passed away when he was very young, and he had lots of issues that he was worried about, finances, he was worried about health, he was worried about so many things. My mother wasn't able to deal with his anger. I'm very empathetic towards them, but we suffered consequences, and I had to give them an opportunity for them to say sorry, and they did. And I'm so glad about that. And our relationship is much better now. But I still live with the consequences. I still suffer.
In what way?
Well, I growing up my self-worth, confidence, trying to be a better father for my child. I have a little boy, and being the best father I can be, not trying to make the same mistakes, trying to improve on what I've seen can happen, trying to be a strong, positive role model. There's so much stuff in the world today that's bad for kids, and I want to be a strong, positive role model for my son.
And given your own experience as being the child of parents who didn't understand that, I mean, that in a sense, I would have thought proves that, I mean, you almost sound to me as if you kind of want validation that you are a good father, but from all that you've said, I can't imagine that you're not.
I know that I try my best for my child. I have a wonderful partner. I mean, without her, I don't know where I'd be, but I think that I know that I'm confident that I'll be a good parent because I want to be, and I'm searching for all the right tools, and I try and read the right things and put my child in the best place possible. And I can only do that if I'm in the best place possible. So I work on myself, I work with my wife, and we do our best for our child.
Well, David, thank you very much for being our last call. I'm glad that it's worked out because clearly you went through some fairly traumatic times. Brian says, I bought my parents' ex-council house for £20,000 with a 25-year mortgage on it. I fully paid the mortgage as it was my investment for the future. After the passing of my parents, I still had 5 years mortgage to pay when I was approached by my niece and her husband for them to rent it from me until they could afford a mortgage to buy it from me, keeping it in the family. After 4 years of renting, I pursued them about the purchase of the house at today's market rate of £125,000. If the sale happened, it would stand me in good cause for me to purchase a property in London and for my job. It didn't happen as my ex-niece and her mother, my ex-sister, thought they could have bought it from me for the hugely discounted price of £15,000. I ended up going to court to get them evicted. Since then, my brother and his wife bought it from me at market price, and we live happily ever after without sister and her family. After the court decision, my ex-sister phoned me to tell me our mother would turn in her grave for what I'd done. If she only knew, my mother would have slapped my ex-sister and her family on the face for what they thought they would have liked. Never will I, nor will other brothers and sisters, speak to my ex-sister again. Well, that took a turn, didn't it? Well, thank you very much for all of your calls and messages this evening. Coming up at 1 on LBC, it's Richard Spurr. But right now, he's back. It's Ben Kentish.
He's back indeed, Ian. Thank you very much indeed. Hello there. A very, very good